A black luxury sedan glides through empty Manhattan streets at 3 in the morning, and inside sits a man who has already decided whether Serena Morgan lives or dies. His name is Lucien Devereux, and he knows things about her no stranger should know. Her morning coffee order, her student loan balance, the precise route she walks home every night from her waitressing shift. When their eyes meet through rain-streaked glass, it doesn't feel like chance. It feels like being marked. Hours from now, Serena will make a choice that destroys her old life forever. Climb into his car, or disappear into the hands of men who see her as nothing more than collateral damage in a war she never knew existed. If you want to see how deep this obsession goes, stay with me until the end. Hit that like button and comment what city you're watching from. I want to see how far Serena's story reaches. 28. The grease trap was leaking again. Serena Morgan stood in the back kitchen of Valentino's, staring at the growing puddle spreading across cracked linoleum tiles, and felt the particular exhaustion that comes from knowing you're about to get blamed for something that isn't your fault. The smell hit her in waves, rancid oil mixed with whatever the hell Marcus had let rot in the walk-in freezer for the past month. Her shift didn't end for another 2 hours, but her feet already felt like they'd been beaten with hammers. "Serena, table 7's waiting on those appetizers." Marcus emerged from his office looking exactly how he always looked, sweating through an expensive shirt, cologne thick enough to choke on, gold watch catching the fluorescent lights. Restaurant manager, her boss. The reason she couldn't afford to quit, even though every instinct told her to run. "Grease trap's overflowing," she said flatly, "so fix it." "That's a maintenance issue. I'm a server." Marcus stepped closer, too close. She could smell whiskey underneath the cologne now. "You want to keep this job, you do what I tell you. Understand?" Serena understood perfectly. She'd understood for 6 months now, ever since she'd taken this position out of pure desperation after her financial aid got delayed and rent came due. She understood that Marcus ran this place like his personal kingdom. She understood that half the waitstaff were terrified of him and the other half were sleeping with him. She understood that the books didn't add up, that strange men in expensive suits came through the back entrance at odd hours. The cash disappeared and reappeared in ways that made her stomach turn. She also understood she had exactly $43 in her checking account and tuition due in 2 weeks. "I'll get the mop," she said. Marcus smiled. "Good girl." She wanted to break his teeth. Instead, she walked back into the dining room, forced her face into something resembling pleasantness, and delivered appetizers to table 7. A young couple who barely looked at her, too absorbed in whatever romantic bubble they'd built around themselves. Serena remembered what that felt like, being young enough to believe the world was fundamentally safe, that bad things happened to other people. She'd learned better. The rest of the shift crawled past in the usual rhythm. Orders taken, plates delivered, forced smiles distributed to customers who treated her like animated furniture. By the time she finally clocked out at 2:47 a.m., her entire body ached, and her tips totaled $63. Not terrible. Not enough. Never enough. She changed out of her uniform in the staff bathroom, pulling on jeans and a sweatshirt that had seen better days, and checked her phone. 3 texts from her roommate about overdue electric bills. 1 email from the university about her academic probation status. Nothing from her mother, but that wasn't surprising. They hadn't spoken in 8 months. Not since Serena had made it clear she wasn't coming back to Ohio to work at the family hardware store and marry someone who'd never left their hometown. The financial district was deserted this time of night. Most restaurants closed by midnight, and the office buildings stood dark and silent, like empty monuments to capitalism. Serena walked fast, keys threaded through her knuckles the way they'd taught her in that self-defense seminar the university offered to freshman girls. As if keys would do anything against real danger. She'd made this walk 100 times. Down 5th Avenue, cut through the shortcut past the construction site, emerge on Bleecker Street where the coffee shop owner was usually just opening up. 42 minutes door to door. Her phone's GPS had it memorized. So did someone else. Serena first noticed the footsteps half a block from Valentino's. Heavy. Deliberate. Keeping pace behind her but never quite catching up. She told herself she was being paranoid. This was New York. People walked everywhere at all hours. But when she turned the corner onto the darker stretch past the construction site, the footsteps turned with her. Her heart kicked into a faster rhythm. She pulled out her phone, pretended to check a message, and used the black screen as a mirror. 2 men, maybe 3. Too far back to see clearly, but close enough to be following. Definitely following. Serena's hand started shaking. She thought about running, thought about screaming, thought about all the statistics she'd read about women alone at night and how most of them ended badly. Her mind spun through useless options. Duck into a building, but they were all locked. Call 911. But what would she say? Men are walking behind me on a public street. Turn around and confront them, which was possibly the stupidest idea she'd ever had. The footsteps got closer. Serena walked faster, her breath coming short now, that animal part of her brain screaming, danger, danger, danger. The construction site loomed on her right, all shadows and scaffolding and places to disappear. She could hear her own heartbeat pounding in her ears, could feel sweat breaking out along her spine despite the October cold. That's when the car appeared. It glided out of nowhere, a black sedan with tinted windows, moving with the kind of silence that meant money, real money. It pulled alongside her so smoothly she almost didn't register it was happening until the back window rolled down. Get in. The voice was cultured, precise, European, maybe French, not what she expected. Serena kept walking. I'm fine, thanks. No, you're not. She made the mistake of looking. The man in the back seat was unlike anyone she'd ever seen outside of a magazine. Dark hair swept back from a face that could have been carved from marble. Sharp cheekbones, strong jaw, lips that looked cruel even in repose. But it was his eyes that stopped her. Pale gray, almost colorless in the streetlight, and utterly focused on her with an intensity that made her skin prickle. There are 3 men following you, he said calmly. One has a knife, another has a gun. They work for Sergei Volkov, and they believe you witnessed something you shouldn't have. If you keep walking, you'll be dead in approximately 90 seconds. If you get in this car, you'll live. Serena's throat closed up. I haven't witnessed anything. Your manager has been laundering money through Valentino's for the past 18 months. You've worked weekend closing shifts, which means you've seen the drop-offs. That makes you a liability. I don't know anything about... I know. His voice didn't change, still that same terrible calm. But they don't care what you know. They care about eliminating risk. Get in the car, Serena. Her name. He knew her name. Every instinct screamed at her to run. But when she glanced back, the footsteps had gotten close enough that she could see faces now. Hard men with dead eyes, moving with purpose. One had his hand inside his jacket. Serena looked at the stranger in the car, looked at the men behind her, felt the choice narrow down to something impossible. Who are you? She whispered. Someone who's decided you're worth saving. He leaned forward slightly. Last chance. The footsteps were running now. Serena yanked the car door open and threw herself inside. The sedan accelerated before she'd even pulled the door shut, the driver taking corners with professional precision while Serena's hands scrambled for a seatbelt. Through the rear window, she watched the men emerge into the street, watched one pull a phone from his pocket, watched them disappear as the car turned onto a main avenue and slipped into late-night traffic. Her heart was trying to beat its way out of her chest. What the fuck, she breathed. What the fuck? What the fuck? Breathe, the stranger said. Don't tell me to breathe. She rounded on him, terror converting instantly into rage. Who are you? How do you know my name? What the hell is happening? He regarded her with those pale, unsettling eyes. Up close, she could see he was younger than she'd first thought, maybe early 30s, though something in his expression made him seem older. He wore a suit that probably cost more than her entire year's tuition, charcoal gray with a black shirt underneath, no tie. His hands were folded calmly in his lap. Elegant hands. No rings, no weapons visible, but she'd bet anything he had at least one. My name is Lucien Devereux, he said. I run certain operations in this city that require careful management of risk and reputation. Your employer made the mistake of trying to play multiple organizations against each other. It didn't end well for him. Serena's stomach dropped. What do you mean it didn't end well? Lucien tilted his head slightly, studying her. Marcus Reynolds was executed 2 hours ago in his apartment. Very messy. The Russians believe you were his confidant, which makes you a loose end. The world tilted. Marcus was dead. Marcus was actually dead. And somehow this stranger knew, had known, before she'd even left work. I didn't... Her voice cracked. I'm just a waitress. I work tables. I don't know anything about whatever he was. I know. Lucien's voice remained maddeningly calm. I've been watching you for 3 months. You arrive on time, work your shifts, go home. You're not involved. Unfortunately, perception matters more than truth in these situations. You've been watching me? Something flickered across his expression, too quick to identify. Yes. For 3 months? Yes. Why? Lucien was quiet for a moment. The car glided through empty streets, the driver invisible behind tinted partition glass. Outside, Manhattan looked like a different city at this hour. Harder, sharper, stripped of its daytime pretenses. Because you smiled at me once, Lucien said finally. In the restaurant. I was there for a meeting with Marcus. You brought coffee, and you smiled like you meant it, like you weren't afraid. Serena stared at him. That's insane. Yes. He didn't sound bothered by this assessment. Nevertheless. So you've been stalking me for 3 months because I was polite? I've been ensuring your safety. He said it like there was a difference. Marcus was always going to end badly. I wanted to make sure you didn't end the same way. This was a nightmare. Had to be. Serena pressed her hands against her thighs to stop them shaking. Let me out. No. This is kidnapping. This is protection. Lucien leaned back against the leather seat. Tomorrow morning, police will find Marcus's body. They'll begin investigating his business dealings. The Russians will be searching for anyone connected to him. You cannot go back to your apartment, your school, or anywhere else in your previous life. Not until this situation is resolved. Resolved how? That depends on several factors. His eyes tracked over her face, clinical and thorough. For now, you'll stay somewhere safe. Safe according to who? Me. Serena laughed, high and slightly hysterical. You're a criminal. Yes. You probably kill people. Often. And I'm supposed to trust you? Lucien's expression didn't change. You don't have to trust me. You just have to stay alive long enough for the Russians to lose interest. How long is that? Difficult to say. Weeks, possibly months. The car turned onto a quieter street lined with luxury buildings. Doormen in uniforms, potted trees, the kind of real estate Serena had only ever seen in movies. The driver pulled into an underground garage, the gate rising smoothly to admit them. Serena's breathing was coming too fast. I can't just disappear. I have classes. A roommate. She'll report me missing. Already handled. Lucien opened his door. Your roommate received a text from your phone 20 minutes ago saying you got a last-minute family emergency and needed to go home to Ohio. She's currently complaining to her boyfriend about having to cover the full rent. Serena's blood ran cold. You took my phone? I cloned it remotely when you were at work. He said it like this was a perfectly normal thing. Your cooperation isn't required for your protection, though it would make things easier. She wanted to hit him, wanted to scream, wanted to wake up from whatever impossible situation she'd fallen into. Instead, she sat frozen in the back seat of a criminal's car while her entire life unraveled. Come, Lucien said. You need food, sleep. Tomorrow, we'll discuss next steps. And if I refuse? He looked at her with those terrible pale eyes. Then Sergei's men will find you within 6 hours, and you'll die badly. This isn't a negotiation, Serena. Your old life ended the moment you got in this car. I'm offering you a new one. I didn't ask for a new life. No. Something almost like sympathy crossed his face. But you're getting one anyway. The apartment, penthouse really, occupied the entire top floor of the building. Serena stepped out of the elevator and felt like she'd walked into an architectural magazine. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Manhattan, furniture that was somehow both minimalist and obviously expensive, art on the walls that looked original. Everything in shades of gray and black and white, cold and beautiful and utterly impersonal. This is where you live? She asked. One of several properties. Lucien moved through the space with casual familiarity, shrugging out of his suit jacket and draping it over a chair. Underneath, she could see the gun holstered at his side, black leather against black shirt. He caught her staring. Does that frighten you? Yes. Good. Fear is appropriate. He gestured toward a hallway. Guest room is second door on the left. Bathroom attached. Clothing in the closet should fit. If not, we'll get you new things tomorrow. Serena didn't move. How did you know my size? I pay attention. That's not an answer. Lucien turned to face her fully. Even in stockinged feet, he was tall enough that she had to tilt her head back to meet his eyes. 3 months ago, I walked into Valentino's for a meeting with a man I knew was stealing from me. You brought coffee, smiled like you meant it, and for approximately 15 seconds, I forgot why I was there. That had never happened before. So I started paying attention. I learned your schedule, your route home, your financial situation. I learned you take your coffee black because you can't afford cream. I learned you're on academic probation because you're working 40 hours a week and can barely stay awake in class. I learned you're trying to survive in a city that eats people like you alive. He stepped closer and Serena's back hit the wall without her meaning to move. I learned, Lucien continued quietly, that you have no one protecting you, so I decided to do it myself. Why? Her voice came out barely a whisper. Because I wanted to. That's insane. You said that already. His hand came up and Serena flinched, but he only brushed a strand of hair from her face. His fingers were warm, careful. I'm not going to hurt you, Serena. I'm going to keep you alive. Whether you appreciate that or not is irrelevant. She shoved his hand away. You can't just decide to take over someone's life. I already have. He stepped back, giving her space. Now go get some sleep. Tomorrow we'll discuss the details. And if I try to leave? Lucien smiled, and it wasn't a nice smile. I have 12 men stationed throughout this building. You wouldn't make it to the elevator. He walked away then, disappearing into another room, leaving Serena standing in the middle of a stranger's penthouse with her heart pounding and her mind screaming. She should run, should fight, should do anything except stand here and accept this. But Marcus was dead, and men with guns had been hunting her, and this beautiful, terrifying stranger had saved her life, or trapped her in a cage she'd never escape. Serena didn't know which. She found the guest room where he'd indicated, massive bed, attached bathroom, closet full of women's clothing in exactly her size. She locked the door, knowing it wouldn't matter if Lucien wanted to get in, then sat on the edge of the bed and finally let herself shake. Her phone buzzed in her pocket and she pulled it out with trembling hands. A text from her roommate. Family emergencies suck, hope everything's okay, don't worry about rent. I'll figure it out, sent from her own number, from Lucien's clone. Serena threw the phone across the room and heard it crack against the wall. Then she lay down on the bed, still fully dressed, and stared at the ceiling while tears leaked from the corners of her eyes. Somewhere in the penthouse, Lucien Devereux was doing whatever criminals did at 4 in the morning, and Serena Morgan's old life was already gone, burned away like it had never existed at all. She didn't sleep, just lay there while the sky outside slowly lightened from black to gray, listening to the sound of her own heartbeat, and wondering if she'd just made the biggest mistake of her life, or if getting in that car had been the only choice that would have kept her alive. At 7 a.m., someone knocked on the door. Breakfast, Lucien's voice came through the wood. You should eat. Serena sat up slowly, every muscle aching. I'm not hungry. Irrelevant. You'll eat anyway. The arrogance of it made something snap inside her. She stalked to the door, yanked it open, ready to tell him exactly where he could shove his breakfast. Lucien stood in the hallway holding a tray. Coffee, toast, eggs. His expression was unreadable. You look terrible, he observed. I didn't sleep. I know. He'd changed clothes, black pants, white shirt rolled to his elbows, no gun visible now, though she'd bet it was close. I could hear you crying. Serena's face burned. Then maybe you should have left me alone. That's not going to happen. He held out the tray. Eat, then we'll talk about what comes next. What comes next is you let me go. No. You can't keep me here. Well, I can, and I will. His voice remained calm, but something dangerous moved behind those pale eyes. Your safety is non-negotiable. My safety or your obsession? Lucien smiled slightly. Both. He walked past her into the room, setting the tray on a small table by the window. Serena wanted to scream. Instead, she found herself following, watching him pour coffee like this was a perfectly normal morning. The Russians have already been to your apartment, he said conversationally, searched it thoroughly. Your roommate is fine. They didn't hurt her, just asked questions about you. She told them what she knows, which is very little. They also checked with your university. Campus security is looking for you now. Serena's hands clenched. So everyone thinks I'm missing. Everyone thinks you went home to deal with a family emergency. He handed her the coffee. Which is what they'll continue to think until the situation changes. And when does it change? When I've eliminated the threat. She stared at him. You mean kill them? If necessary. No hesitation, no remorse. You're talking about murder. Lucien set down his own cup. I'm talking about survival. This is the world you're in now, Serena. People die. Usually the ones who aren't prepared to do what's necessary. I'm prepared. Which is why you're drinking coffee instead of bleeding out in an alley. The bluntness of it hit her like a slap. I didn't ask for this. You asked for nothing. You were simply existing, and existence is dangerous for the unprotected. He moved to the window, looking out over the city. Marcus made choices that put you in danger. I'm making choices that keep you alive. That's all that matters. What matters is you're keeping me prisoner. Prisoner. He tested the word. An interesting perspective. You have a comfortable room, good food, complete safety. Most people would consider that a gift. Most people aren't being held against their will by a criminal. Lucien turned from the window, and the look in his eyes made Serena's breath catch. He crossed the space between them in 3 strides, stopping close enough that she could feel the heat coming off his body. You want to leave? His voice dropped low. Fine. Walk out that door, take the elevator down. Step into the street, see how long you last before Sergei's men find you. See if they're as gentle as I am. Gentle, Serena breathed. You call this gentle? I haven't laid a hand on you except to brush away your hair. I haven't threatened you, hurt you, or taken anything you didn't offer, so yes. His hand came up, cupping her jaw with surprising tenderness. Compared to what I could do, this is gentle. She should pull away, should slap him, should do anything except stand there with his hand on her face and her heart trying to beat its way out of her chest. I hate you, she whispered. I know. His thumb traced her cheekbone. Hate me all you want, as long as you stay alive. Then he stepped back, the moment breaking like glass. Eat your breakfast, he said calmly. Then we're going shopping. Serena's brain struggled to catch up. Shopping? You can't wear the same clothes every day. He moved toward the door. 1 hour, be ready. He left before she could form a coherent argument. Serena stood in the middle of the room, touching her face where his hand had been, and wondered what kind of monster could be terrifying and gentle in the same breath. She ate the breakfast because she was starving, hated herself for it, and wondered what the hell came next. The driver's name was Anton, and he never spoke. Serena learned this during the elevator ride down from Lucien's penthouse, where the silent man in the black suit positioned himself between her and the doors like a human shield. He had the build of someone who'd spent years doing violence professionally. Thick neck, scarred can knuckles, eyes that tracked every movement in the mirrored walls. Lucien stood beside her, checking his phone with the casual indifference of someone who'd never worried about personal safety a day in his life. He'd added a watch since breakfast. Simple, expensive, the kind that costs more than most people's cars. Anton doesn't talk, Lucien said without looking up. Took a bullet through the throat in Moscow. Medical miracle he survived, but his vocal cords are gone. Serena stared at the back of Anton's head. That's horrible. That's the life. Ian pocketed his phone as the elevator opened into the garage. He's also the best driver in the city, and completely loyal, which is why he's been assigned to you. Assigned to me? Until this situation resolves, Anton goes where you go. Lucien opened the rear door of the same black sedan from last night. Consider him a shadow. Anton's expression didn't change, but something that might have been amusement flickered in his eyes. Serena climbed into the car because the alternative was standing in a parking garage arguing, and she'd already lost enough battles this morning. Lucien slid in beside her, close enough that his thigh pressed against hers in the confined space. She shifted away. He didn't comment. The car glided out into morning traffic, and Manhattan looked completely different in daylight. Crowded, loud, alive with people rushing to jobs and lives that suddenly felt impossibly far away from whatever this was. Serena watched a woman in a business suit juggling coffee and a briefcase, phone pressed to her ear, and felt a sharp stab of envy for that normal, complicated, beautiful, ordinary life. "Where are we going?" she asked. "Fifth Avenue. You need clothes, toiletries, anything else required for an extended stay." Lucien was doing something on his phone again, fingers moving with practiced efficiency. "Budget is irrelevant. Get what you need." "I can't afford. I'm paying. I don't want your money." He looked at her then, one eyebrow raised slightly. "You're wearing a sweatshirt with holes in it and jeans held together with hope. Your pride is admirable, but impractical." Heat flooded Serena's face. "Maybe I like these clothes. Maybe you had no choice." His voice gentled fractionally. "There's no shame in accepting help, Serena, especially when the alternative is going back to an apartment filled with Russian gangsters waiting to kill you." The bluntness of it still shocked her, even after last night. "You don't have to keep reminding me." "I think I do. You keep looking for ways to escape, as if returning to your previous existence is an option. It's not." He shifted to face her more fully. "Your manager is dead. Your apartment is compromised. The university believes you're in Ohio. For all practical purposes, Serena Morgan ceased to exist 12 hours ago. What remains is deciding who you become next." "I don't want to become someone else." "Too late. Not cruel, just factual. The question now is whether you become someone who survives or someone who dies stupidly because she refused to adapt." Serena bit down hard on her tongue to keep from screaming. Outside, the city scrolled past in its endless carnival of wealth and poverty, beauty and ugliness, all mixed together like it couldn't decide what it wanted to be. Kind of like her right now. The store was the kind of place Serena had walked past 1,000 times without ever considering going inside. Pristine glass windows, mannequins in outfits that cost more than her monthly rent, staff who looked like they'd stepped out of fashion magazines. A woman in severe black greeted them at the door, took one look at Lucien, and her entire demeanor shifted. "Mr. Devereux, a pleasure as always. Margot." He gestured toward Serena. "She needs a complete wardrobe, casual, formal, everything in between. 1 hour." Margot's eyes cataloged Serena with professional efficiency, taking in the cheap clothes, the exhaustion, the barely concealed hostility. To her credit, her smile never wavered. "Of course. Right this way, miss." Lucien settled into a chair near the dressing rooms like a king on a throne, pulling out his phone again. Anton positioned himself by the door, arms crossed, watching. Margot led Serena deeper into the store, already pulling items from racks with the confidence of someone who knew exactly what she was doing. "Pants first, I think. What size are you?" "I don't know." The admission felt humiliating. "I usually just buy whatever's on sale." "No judgment here, darling." Margot's voice was kind. "Let's get you measured properly." The next 40 minutes passed in a blur of fabric and mirrors, and Margot's gentle insistence that yes, this fit properly, and no, that color wasn't right, and try this one instead. Serena found herself in clothes she'd never imagined wearing: soft cashmere sweaters, perfectly tailored pants, a leather jacket that probably cost more than her entire existing wardrobe combined. "You have good proportions," Margot said, adjusting the fall of a silk blouse. "Strong shoulders, slim waist. Most things will suit you once we get the sizing right." Serena stared at her reflection. The woman looking back didn't quite feel real, polished, put together, expensive. A stranger wearing her face. "I can't afford any of this," she said quietly. Margot's expression softened. "Mr. Devereux is covering the cost. He's a generous man with people he cares about. He doesn't care about me. He's obsessed with me. There's a difference." "Is there?" Margot began gathering items. "In my experience, obsession and care often look very similar. It's the intent that matters." "His intent is keeping me prisoner." "His intent," Margot said carefully, "is keeping you alive. Whether you appreciate his methods or not, you're here and breathing instead of wherever those other men wanted you. That counts for something." Serena wanted to argue, but Margot had already moved on, pulling more items with brisk efficiency. By the time they finished, there were enough clothes to fill 3 large bags: jeans, dresses, shoes, undergarments that made Serena blush when Margot matter-of-factly asked her size. Lucien barely glanced up when they emerged. "Finished?" "Yes," Margot said. Everything she needs, plus a few extras. He handed over a black credit card without asking the total. Margot disappeared to process the payment, and Serena stood there, surrounded by bags full of clothes she hadn't chosen and didn't want, feeling like a doll being dressed by invisible hands. "Thank you," she forced out. Lucien looked at her. "You don't mean that." "No, but apparently I'm supposed to say it anyway." Something almost like a smile touched his mouth. "Honesty. I appreciate that." The ride back was silent, except for the muted sounds of traffic. Serena stared out the window and tried not to think about how easily Lucien had just rewritten another piece of her life. New clothes, new identity, new everything, chosen and paid for by a man who'd decided 3 months ago that she belonged to him. Back in the penthouse, Anton carried the bags to the guest room while Lucien disappeared into what looked like an office. Serena stood in the massive living room feeling completely untethered, like she'd become a ghost haunting someone else's life. Her phone, the cracked one she'd thrown last night, sat on the coffee table. Fixed, screen replaced, working perfectly. She picked it up with shaking hands. Text from her roommate about apartment stuff. An email from the university counselor asking about her family emergency. A missed call from a number she didn't recognize. All of it fake. All of it Lucien, controlling the narrative, making sure her old life continued without her in it. Serena scrolled through her contacts and found her mother's number, hovered over the call button. Wondered what she'd even say. "Hi, Mom. I got kidnapped by a French crime boss who's obsessed with me. How's Ohio?" "Don't." She spun around. Lucien stood in the office doorway, watching her with those unsettling pale eyes. "That phone is monitored," he said. "Any calls you make, I'll know about. More importantly, so will anyone else tracking communications in and out of this building." "So I can't even talk to my own mother?" "Not safely. Not yet." He moved into the room. "The Russians have excellent technical capabilities. If they intercept a call from you, they'll triangulate the location within minutes. Then what's the point of having a phone at all? So your old life continues to look normal from the outside." He took the phone from her hands, his fingers brushing hers. "Texts are safer. I can route them through secure channels, but voice calls are too risky right now." Serena jerked her hand back. "This is insane. All of it." "Yes." He set the phone down. "But it's the reality you're living in. Because of you. Because of Marcus." His voice sharpened. "I didn't put you in danger. I extracted you from it. There's a difference." "You're keeping me here. I'm keeping you alive." The sudden intensity in his voice made her step back. Lucien caught himself, visibly pulling his control back into place. When he spoke again, his tone had returned to that maddeningly calm register. "Apologize. That was inappropriate. You don't get to yell at me." "No." He ran a hand through his hair, and for the first time she saw genuine frustration crack through his polished surface. "You're right. I don't." They stood there in tense silence. Outside, the city stretched in all directions, completely indifferent to the small human drama playing out in this expensive cage. "I have a meeting," Lucien said finally. "It will take several hours. Anton will be stationed outside your room. Don't try to leave." "Or what?" His eyes met hers. "Or I'll be very disappointed." He left before she could formulate a response to that. Serena spent the next 3 hours trying to find a way out. She checked every window, all locked, most overlooking a drop that would kill her instantly. The front door required a key code she didn't have. The emergency stairs were alarmed. Her phone, even repaired, was useless for calling anyone who could actually help. She was trapped, completely, thoroughly, professionally trapped by someone who'd clearly done this before. The realization settled over her like concrete. Around 2 p.m., Anton knocked and left a tray outside her door. Lunch, beautifully prepared, completely unwanted. Serena ate it anyway because hunger didn't care about dignity, then went back to staring at the walls and wondering how long until she completely lost her mind. That's when she noticed the laptop. It sat on the desk in the corner, sleek and black and closed. She'd assumed it was locked, password protected, useless. But when she opened it, the screen came to life immediately. No password, no restrictions. Which meant either Lucien was careless, unlikely, or this was a test. Serena's hands hovered over the keyboard. She could search for help. Find the address, contact police, do something to get herself out of this nightmare. Or she could remember what Lucien had said about monitoring. She pulled up a browser anyway, typed Lucien Devereux into the search bar. The results made her blood run cold. There wasn't much. Criminals at his level didn't tend to have LinkedIn profiles. But what existed painted a picture of someone far more dangerous than she'd imagined. Mentions in old newspaper articles about organized crime in New York. A blurry photo from someone's phone showing a man who might have been him leaving a courthouse. Forums dedicated to true crime speculation where people debated his body count like fantasy football statistics. One article from 6 years ago detailed the murder of a Russian oligarch in Paris. The prime suspect had been a French national with connections to organized crime. No charges filed, case gone cold. The suspect's name had been redacted, but someone in the comments claimed it was Lucien. Serena's hands were shaking now. She clicked on another link, this one from a site that looked barely legal, all conspiracy theories and unverified information. But buried in the rambling text was a list of crimes allegedly connected to Lucien Devereux. Money laundering, weapons trafficking, extortion, and 23 murders spread across 3 continents. 23. The man who'd bought her clothes this morning had allegedly killed 23 people. The man who'd brushed hair from her face with surprising gentleness was a professional murderer. Learning anything interesting? Serena nearly fell out of the chair. Lucien stood in the doorway, still wearing the same clothes from this morning, but somehow looking more dangerous. His jacket was gone, shirt sleeves rolled up, and there was something dark on his knuckles that might have been blood. "You're back early," she managed. Meeting ended quickly. He moved into the room, and she instinctively shifted away from the laptop. He glanced at the screen, reading the article, and something flickered across his face. 23. They're underestimating. Her stomach dropped. How many? Does it matter? He closed the laptop with one hand. Would 37 make you more afraid? 42? At what number does murder become worse than murder? You're joking about this. I'm being honest. He sat on the edge of the desk, those pale eyes fixed on her. You wanted to know who I am. Now you know. I kill people for a living, sometimes because they pose a threat, sometimes because they break agreements, sometimes simply because it's necessary for maintaining order in a very chaotic world. Serena's throat closed up. The blood on your hand belongs to someone who tried to negotiate in bad faith. He looked at his knuckles with mild interest. He'll live, this time. You're a monster. Yes. No hesitation, no shame. But I'm a monster who's keeping you safe, which makes me the best option you have right now. There are no good options. No, Lucien agreed. There are only surviving options and dying options. I'm offering survival. Serena stood abruptly, needing distance. She made it 3 steps before her knees buckled. The stress, the fear, the complete unreality of everything finally catching up. Lucien caught her before she hit the floor. His arms came around her with surprising steadiness, taking her weight like it was nothing. She should fight, should scream, should do anything except collapse against a murderer's chest while tears burned behind her eyes. Easy, he murmured. Breathe. Don't tell me to breathe, then stop hyperventilating. He guided her to the bed, sitting her down while he crouched in front of her. Head between your knees. Slow breaths. She wanted to tell him to fuck off, but her lungs weren't cooperating. The room spun. Her vision tunneled. That awful disconnect from reality intensifying until she couldn't tell what was real anymore. Lucien's hand found the back of her neck, warm and steady. Count with me. In for 4. Hold for 4. Out for 4. I can't. You can. His voice stayed maddeningly calm. In, 1, 2, 3, 4. Against every instinct, Serena found herself following his count. Breathing in, holding, breathing out. The panic attack slowly releasing its grip on her chest. When she could finally sit up without the world tilting, Lucien was still there, still watching her with those unreadable eyes. Better? He asked. She nodded, not trusting her voice. This will get easier, he said. Your mind is trying to process too much too quickly. Eventually, it will adapt. Adapt to being a prisoner? Adapt to surviving. He stood, putting distance between them again. Whether you believe it or not, I don't want you to suffer. This situation is temporary. How temporary? That depends on the Russians, and on you. She looked up sharply. What does that mean? Lucien was quiet for a moment, seeming to choose his words carefully. There are two ways this ends. Either the Russians lose interest in you naturally, which could take months, or I give them a reason to lose interest. What kind of reason? That's the part that depends on you. He moved to the window, looking out over the city. If you were to become publicly associated with me, the Russians would back off immediately. No one in this city touches what belongs to me. The implication hit her like cold water. You want me to pretend to be your girlfriend? I want you to actually be my girlfriend. Pretending is dangerous, too easy to make mistakes. He glanced back at her. But if you were genuinely mine, if that relationship was visible and documented, Sergei would consider you off limits. It's one of the few rules everyone follows. That's insane. That's strategy. He turned to face her fully. I'm not asking you to love me. I'm asking you to let people believe you do. Let yourself be seen with me. Act the part. In return, you get freedom of movement, access to your old life, and complete protection. In return, I become your possession. In return, you become untouchable. His voice was soft, but absolute. Think about it. He left her there, door closing with a quiet click. Serena sat on the bed and tried to process what he was asking. Become his girlfriend. Play house with a murderer. Let herself be branded as belonging to the most dangerous man in the city, all so she could maybe, eventually, get her life back, if she even wanted it anymore. The thought came unbidden and unwelcome. Maybe her old life hadn't been worth saving, working herself to death for poverty wages, drowning in debt, invisible to everyone except when they needed something from her. What exactly was she fighting so hard to get back to? She hated that she was even thinking this way. Hated that Lucien's offer made a sick kind of sense. Hated that part of her, a small, treacherous part, was curious what being his might actually feel like. That night, Lucien ordered dinner from somewhere expensive. Thai food in elegant containers, portions sized for actual humans instead of the giant American servings she was used to. They ate at the dining table in tense silence, Anton standing nearby like a statue. You don't have to answer tonight, Lucien said finally. Take time. Think it through. How much time? However long you need. Though I should mention the Russians made another move today. They showed up at the university asking questions about you. Serena's fork clattered against her plate. What kind of questions? Whether you'd been involved with Marcus romantically, whether you might have helped him hide money. They're building a narrative that justifies eliminating you. He took a sip of wine. Campus security gave them nothing useful, but it won't stop them from looking. So I'm running out of time. The situation is escalating, which means decisions need to be made sooner rather than later. She pushed food around her plate. If I say yes, if I agree to this insane plan, what would it actually involve? Lucien set down his glass. Public appearances. Dinners, events, anywhere you'd be photographed with me. Physical affection when others are watching. Nothing you're uncomfortable with, but enough to be convincing. Moving some of your belongings here to make it look legitimate. I don't have belongings anymore. You said my apartment was compromised. Anton retrieved certain items this afternoon. Your laptop, some books, photographs. Things that would have seemed suspicious if left behind. He gestured toward the guest room. They're in your closet. The casual mention of someone going through her private things made her skin crawl. You sent him into my apartment. I sent him to collect your possessions before the Russians could use them against you. Would you prefer I'd left everything for them to find? She had no answer to that. After dinner, Serena retreated to her room and found the items Anton had taken. Her old laptop, scratched and held together with tape. A small box of photographs from college. The battered paperback of her favorite novel. A framed picture of her and her mother from 5 years ago, back when they'd still talked regularly. She held the photo and felt something crack inside her chest. Her mother didn't even know she was in danger. Probably thought Serena was just being dramatic about some made-up family emergency. They'd grown so far apart over the years, all those fights about Serena's choices, about leaving Ohio, about refusing to settle for a safe, small life. And now Serena was trapped in a penthouse with a criminal, contemplating becoming his fake girlfriend to stay alive. Her mother would be horrified. Or maybe, a small voice whispered, she'd be relieved someone was finally taking care of you. Serena shoved the photo back into the box and grabbed her old laptop. It booted up slowly, familiar and comforting in its shittiness. She opened her document folder, found the half-finished essay she'd been writing before everything went to hell. The role of individual agency in modern economic systems. It felt like something written by a different person in a different lifetime. She pulled up a blank document instead and started typing. Not an essay, not homework, just words spilling out faster than she could think them through. I don't know who I am anymore. 3 days ago, I was a waitress struggling to pay rent. Now I'm living in a penthouse with a man who's killed dozens of people. He says he's protecting me. He says I have no choice. He says my old life is gone. Maybe he's right. Maybe Serena Morgan died the moment she got in that car, and whoever's left is just trying to figure out how to survive. He wants me to be his. Publicly. Officially. Completely. He wants me to stand beside him and let the world see me as his possession. And the terrifying part is, I'm actually considering it, not because I want him, but because I want to stop being afraid. I want to stop feeling powerless. I want to stop watching my life happen to me instead of making my own choices. Even if this choice is just picking which cage I live in. She saved the document and closed the laptop, feeling hollowed out. A knock on the door. "Come in," she said without thinking. Lucien entered carrying 2 glasses of something amber. He offered one to her. "Bourbon, you look like you need it." Serena took the glass because arguing seemed exhausting. The liquid burned going down but settled warm in her stomach. "I've been thinking about your offer," she said. "And I have conditions." Interest flickered in his eyes. "I'm listening." "First, I want to finish my degree. Online if necessary, but I'm not dropping out." "Agreed. I'll arrange for a secure connection and have your academic records transferred to independent study status. Second, I want access to my money. Not your money. Mine. Whatever I earned before this. You have $43 in your checking account and $17,000 in student loan debt. But yes, your accounts remain yours." The fact that he knew her exact financial situation down to the dollar should have surprised her. It didn't. "Third," she continued, "I want to be able to contact my mother, not now, but eventually. When it's safe." Lucien was quiet for a moment. "That's reasonable. When the situation stabilizes, we'll arrange a secure method of communication. And fourth," she met his eyes directly, "this ends when the threat is gone. However long it takes, whatever we have to do to convince people, when it's over, I get to decide whether I stay or go. No strings, no consequences, just my choice." He studied her face for a long moment. "You're negotiating the terms of your own cage." "I'm taking back what control I can." Something that might have been respect crossed his expression. "All right, I agree to your conditions. Is that a yes?" Serena drained the rest of her bourbon in one burning swallow. "Ask me properly." Lucien set down his glass and moved closer, close enough that she had to tilt her head back to maintain eye contact. His hand came up, cupping her face the way he had that first morning. "Serena Morgan," he said quietly, "will you be mine? Publicly, convincingly, until the threat against your life is eliminated?" Her heart hammered against her ribs. This was insane. All of it. She was agreeing to become the girlfriend of a murderer to protect herself from other murderers. This was not how normal people solved problems, but she wasn't a normal person anymore. That woman had died in an alley she'd never even reached. "Yes," Serena whispered. Lucien's thumb traced her cheekbone. "Say it clearly." "Yes, I'll be yours." His eyes darkened with something she couldn't name. "Good." Then he kissed her. It wasn't gentle, wasn't sweet. It was possession and claim and the complete absence of hesitation. His hand slid into her hair, angling her head how he wanted it, and Serena found herself kissing him back with a desperation that terrified her. This was wrong. Every instinct screamed it was wrong. But his mouth was warm and demanding, and when his teeth caught her lower lip, she made a sound she didn't recognize. Lucien pulled back just enough to meet her eyes. "That wasn't part of the negotiation." "I know." Her voice came out shaky. "But you kissed me back." "I know that too." His expression shifted into something almost predatory. "Interesting." He stepped away before she could formulate a response, moving toward the door with that same controlled grace he always had. At the threshold, he paused. We'll start tomorrow. Public appearance at a charity gala. I'll have appropriate clothing delivered in the morning. His eyes tracked over her face one more time. Get some sleep, Serena. You're going to need it. He left her there, touching her lips where they still burned from his kiss, wondering what the hell she'd just agreed to, and why part of her was looking forward to finding out. The next morning, 3 garment bags appeared in her room alongside professional hair and makeup people who transformed her into someone she barely recognized. The dress was deep emerald green, cut to emphasize curves she hadn't known she had. The heels were dangerously high. The jewelry was real. She could tell by the weight. Mr. Devereux has excellent taste, one of the stylists murmured while arranging Serena's hair into an elegant updo. You look stunning. Serena stared at her reflection and saw a different woman. Polished, expensive, the kind of person who belonged on Lucien's arm, not a struggling waitress from Ohio who'd gotten in way over her head. When she emerged from the bedroom, Lucien was waiting in the living room. He'd changed into a tuxedo that fit him like it had been built specifically for his body, which it probably had. His hair was swept back, and when he looked at her, something heated flashed through those pale eyes. Perfect, he said. I feel ridiculous. You look devastating. He crossed to her, adjusting one of her earrings with careful fingers. Remember, tonight we're madly in love, convinced everyone we can't keep our hands off each other. That's going to be difficult since I still hate you. Hate me all you want in private. In public, you adore me. His hand settled at the small of her back, warm through the thin fabric. Can you do that? Serena thought about the kiss last night, about how easy it had been to lose herself in it. Yeah, I can do that. Good girl. The gala was exactly what she'd expected. Obscenely wealthy people in obscenely expensive clothes, pretending to care about whatever charity was being honored while actually networking and showing off. Lucien navigated it with practiced ease, his hand never leaving her back, introducing her to people whose names she immediately forgot. And this is Serena, he said, for the 10th time. My girlfriend. The possessiveness in his voice was so convincing she almost believed it herself. They danced, drank champagne, smiled for photographs. And through it all, Lucien played his part perfectly. Attentive, affectionate, completely besotted. His hands on her waist, his mouth close to her ear making comments that looked intimate but were actually observations about who was watching them. The man in the gray suit, he murmured, one of Sergei's associates. He's been staring since we arrived. Serena's stomach tightened. What do we do? Exactly what we're doing. Let him see how thoroughly you belong to me. He spun her in the dance, pulling her close enough that their bodies pressed together. To anyone watching, it looked like passion, like 2 people who couldn't wait to get home and tear each other's clothes off. Serena's heart pounded for entirely different reasons. He's taking photos, Lucien said against her ear. Good or bad? Good. By tomorrow, every criminal organization in the city will know you're mine, and no one will touch you. The song ended. Lucien Devereux guided her off the dance floor, his hand possessive on her hip. They made it to a quieter corner before Serena's legs started shaking. I need air, she breathed. Balcony, 2 minutes. She escaped through glass doors onto a terrace overlooking the city. The October night was cold enough to hurt, but the pain felt clarifying. Real. Footsteps behind her, not Lucien's familiar tread. Serena turned and found the man in the gray suit. Up close, he looked even more dangerous. Hard face, dead eyes, the kind of stillness that came from knowing how to kill quickly. Miss Morgan, he said with a thick Russian accent, we should talk. Every muscle in her body locked up. I don't think... Your boyfriend killed my brother. He stepped closer. 3 months ago, Paris. You should know what kind of man you're fucking. Serena's throat closed. I don't know what you're talking about. Lucien Devereux murdered Alexei Volkov in cold blood over a contract dispute. Slit his throat and left him bleeding in an alley. His smile was terrible. But I suppose he didn't mention that. Murderers rarely advertise. Get away from her. Lucien materialized from the shadows like something conjured. His voice was soft, but the threat in it made the air vibrate. The Russian didn't move. We're just talking. No, you're leaving. Lucien positioned himself between Serena and the man, and she could see the gun now, barely visible under his jacket, but definitely there. Walk away, Dmitri, while you still can. This isn't over. Yes, it is. Lucien's hand moved fractionally toward the weapon. You have 3 seconds. Dmitri looked at Serena one more time, something calculating in his expression. Then he walked away, disappearing back into the gala. Lucien waited until the doors closed before turning to her. Are you all right? Did you kill his brother? Her voice shook. Yes. In Paris? 3 months ago? Yes. Serena pressed her hands against the balcony railing to keep them from trembling. Why? Because Alexei Volkov tried to expand into territory that wasn't his. He ignored warnings, killed 2 of my people, and thought his family name would protect him. Lucien's voice remained calm, factual. I proved him wrong. You slit his throat. I ended a threat to my organization. The method was appropriate to the message I needed to send. She stared at him, at this beautiful, terrible man who spoke about murder like other people discussed business contracts. How many people have you killed? Do you really want that answer? Yes. Lucien was quiet for a long moment. 63. That I remember. There may be more. The number hit her like a physical blow. 63 people. 63 lives ended by the man who'd just had his hand on her waist, who'd kissed her last night, who was supposed to be protecting her. I think I'm going to be sick, she whispered. Then be sick, but do it inside where no one can see. He touched her arm gently. We're being watched. This needs to look like a romantic moment, not a breakdown. How can you... She couldn't even finish the question. Because this is who I am. No apology, no shame. I told you I was a monster. Did you think I was exaggerating? I thought... What had she thought? That it wouldn't be real somehow? That the blood on his hands was theoretical? I don't know what I thought. You thought you could negotiate with a murderer and somehow stay clean. But there's no clean anymore, Serena. You agreed to be mine. That means accepting what I am. She wanted to run, wanted to scream, wanted to rewind time to before she'd ever walked into Valentino's and smiled at a dangerous man having coffee. But the Russian's words kept echoing. You should know what kind of man you're fucking. She wasn't fucking him. This was fake, strategic, a performance to keep her alive. Except the kiss last night hadn't felt fake. And the way Lucien was looking at her right now, like she was something precious he'd kill to protect, didn't feel strategic. Take me home, she said. We need to stay another hour. I don't care. She met his eyes. Take me home or I'm walking out of here right now and letting them find me. It was a bluff. Probably. Lucien studied her face, and whatever he saw there made him nod once. All right, come on. They left through a side entrance, Anton materializing with the car like he'd been waiting for exactly this. The ride back was silent, except for the city noise bleeding through expensive sound insulation. In the penthouse, Serena went straight to her room, but Lucien followed. You can't just walk away when things get difficult. Difficult? She spun on him. 63 people. You've killed 63 people, and you're acting like it's normal. In my world, it is normal. Then your world is insane. Yes. He stepped closer, and she could see cracks forming in that perfect control. Yes, it's fucking insane. It's violent and brutal and completely devoid of anything resembling justice. But it's the world that exists, whether you accept it or not. I don't have to accept anything. You already did. His hand shot out, gripping her wrist. Not hard enough to hurt, but firm enough to stop her retreat. You said yes. You agreed to be mine. You can't take that back just because reality got uncomfortable. Serena yanked her arm free. Watch me. You'll die. Maybe that's better than this. The words hung between them like broken glass. Lucien's expression went completely cold. You don't mean that. Don't I? Tears burned behind her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. Maybe I'd rather take my chances than become complicit in everything you do. Complicit. He laughed, sharp and ugly. You think proximity makes you guilty? You think loving a monster turns you into one? I don't love you. Not yet. He moved closer, backing her against the wall. But you will. Because despite everything you think you know about yourself, you're drawn to this. To me. To the danger and the power. and the complete certainty that I will burn the world down before I let anything touch you. You're delusional. Am I? His hand came up, cradling her face with that same careful tenderness that made her insides twist. Then why did you kiss me back? Why do you lean into my touch even when you hate me? Why are you still here, Serena, when you could have run a dozen times? She didn't have an answer, couldn't find one through the chaos in her head. Lucien's thumb brushed across her lips. I killed those people because it was necessary. I killed Alexei Volkov because he threatened everything I'd built. And I would kill 100 more if it meant keeping you safe. That's who I am. That's what I'm offering you. That's not love. No, it's obsession. His forehead pressed against hers. But maybe obsession is all I'm capable of. And maybe that's enough. Serena's breath came fast and shallow, her heart trying to beat its way out of her chest. This was wrong. All of it. She should push him away, should stick to her ultimatum, should do anything except stand here with his hands on her face and his words sinking into her bones. But she couldn't move, couldn't think past the terrible truth taking shape in her mind. She didn't want to run, even knowing what he was, what he'd done, the bodies piled behind him like a monument to violence. She didn't want to leave, and that realization was more terrifying than anything else that had happened. I hate you, she whispered. I know. His lips brushed hers so gentle it hurt. Hate me all you want. Just don't leave. She kissed him. Didn't mean to. Didn't plan it. But suddenly her hands were in his hair and his mouth was on hers, and nothing else existed except this moment, this terrible, perfect, awful moment of surrendering to something she couldn't name. Lucien made a sound low in his throat and pulled her closer, the kiss turning desperate. His hands found her waist, gripping hard enough to leave marks, and Serena didn't care. Let him mark her. Let him claim her. Let this whole fucked up situation finally make sense. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, Lucien's eyes had gone dark with want. This is a mistake, Serena said. Probably. I still don't trust you. Smart. And I'm not staying forever. We'll see. He kissed her again, softer this time. But you're staying tonight. It wasn't a question, and Serena didn't treat it like one. She let him lead her to his bedroom, because somehow they'd ended up at his door instead of hers. Let him unzip her dress with careful fingers. Let herself become exactly what she'd sworn she wouldn't. Willing. His. At least for tonight. At least until morning came and reality reasserted itself, and she had to face what she'd become. But for now, in the darkness of Lucien Devereux's bedroom, with the city glowing beneath them, Serena Morgan stopped fighting, and discovered that surrender could feel like power. If you convinced yourself the cage was a choice, morning came with guilt. Serena woke tangled in sheets that cost more than her previous month's rent, in a bed that wasn't hers, next to a man who'd killed 63 people. Sunlight cut through floor-to-ceiling windows, painting everything in shades of gold that felt obscene, given what she'd done. What they'd done. Lucien was already awake, propped against the headboard with his phone, looking like some kind of Renaissance painting, all sharp lines and perfect angles, completely unbothered by the moral catastrophe currently eating Serena alive from the inside out. Coffee's on the nightstand, he said without looking up. She grabbed the cup because her hands needed something to do besides shake. The coffee was perfect, exactly how she took it, which meant he'd been paying attention even to details that small. The observation made her stomach turn. We need to talk, she said. About last night? About all of it. She pulled the sheet higher, suddenly aware of her nakedness in a way she hadn't been in the dark. This wasn't supposed to happen. Nothing about this situation was supposed to happen. He finally looked at her, those pale eyes, unreadable. But we're here anyway. I slept with you. I noticed. That wasn't part of the agreement. No, it was better than the agreement. He set down his phone, giving her his full attention. The agreement was pretending. Last night was real. Serena's throat closed up. It was a mistake. Was it? He reached out, tracing one finger along her bare shoulder. Because from where I'm sitting, it felt inevitable. She jerked away from his touch. Don't do that. Don't act like this was romantic when you're a fucking murderer who basically kidnapped me. I saved you. You trapped me. I gave you options. His voice remained maddeningly calm. You chose this. Chose me. Chose to let me undress you and make you come so hard you forgot your own name. Don't pretend you were forced. Heat flooded her face. You're a manipulative bastard. Yes, and you still wanted me. He smiled slightly. That must be very confusing for you. Serena wanted to throw the coffee in his face. Instead, she set it down carefully and climbed out of bed, grabbing his discarded shirt from last night because her dress was somewhere on the floor, and she needed armor right now. Where are you going? Lucien asked. Away from you. Serena, don't. She spun to face him. Just don't. I need space to think. Something flickered across his expression, too quick to identify. All right, take your space. But we have a dinner tonight with some associates. Very public, very visible. You'll need to be ready by 7. I'm not going, and Mom... Yes, you are. Not a request. The photographs from last night are already circulating. Every organization in the city knows you're mine now. We can't break the illusion just because you're having second thoughts about fucking me. The crudeness of it stung like a slap. You're an asshole. I'm realistic. He stood, completely comfortable in his nakedness, in a way that made her look away. You made a choice. Live with it. She fled to the guest room. Her room, she corrected mentally, even though nothing in this place was actually hers. Once inside with the door locked, Serena finally let herself fall apart. She'd slept with him. She'd actually slept with Lucien Devereux, knowing what he was, knowing what he'd done, and worst of all, she'd wanted it, every second of it. The way his hands had mapped her body like he was memorizing territory, the way he'd whispered her name against her skin, the way he'd looked at her after, like she was something precious instead of a complication in his criminal empire. Her phone buzzed, a text from her roommate's number, which meant Lucien controlling the narrative. Hey girl, things are crazy here, but I'm okay. Miss you? Talk soon. Serena stared at the words she hadn't written, maintaining a life she wasn't living, and felt something fundamental shift inside her chest. She couldn't do this anymore, couldn't keep pretending this was temporary, that she'd eventually go back to her old existence. That woman was gone. The Serena who'd served coffee and struggled with tuition and believed the world was fundamentally fair, she didn't exist anymore. What remained was something harder, sharper. Someone who'd survived attempted murder and made deals with criminals and let herself be consumed by a monster because it felt better than being powerless. The realization should have been devastating. Instead, it felt like relief. She spent the rest of the day avoiding Lucien. Stayed in her room, scrolled mindlessly through social media, watched her own face appear in photos from the gala. Lucien's hand on her waist, her head tilted toward his shoulder. The two of them looking like any other wealthy couple completely absorbed in each other. The comments were predictable. Who is she? And Devereux has a girlfriend, and she's gorgeous, mixed with speculation about where she'd come from and whether this was serious. One comment made her blood run cold. Poor girl has no idea what she's gotten into. If only they knew. At 6:30, there was a knock on her door. Not Lucien, the touch was too hesitant. Come in, she called. Anton entered carrying another garment bag. He held it out to her, his scarred face expressionless, then pointed at his watch. 1 hour. I know, Serena said. Tell him I'll be ready. Anton nodded once and left. The dress was black this time. Simple, elegant, expensive. She put it on because the alternative was defiance for its own sake, which felt childish. Did her own makeup because letting strangers touch her face again seemed unbearable. Left her hair down because Lucien had said once he liked it that way. She stopped that thought immediately. Didn't matter what Lucien liked. This was a performance, a survival strategy, nothing more. The lie felt thinner every time she repeated it. Lucien was waiting in the living room, looking devastating in another perfectly tailored suit. His eyes tracked over her, cataloging every detail. You look beautiful, he said. Don't. Don't what? Compliment you? Don't act like this is real. She grabbed her borrowed clutch, also expensive, also his. We have an arrangement, that's all. An arrangement that includes you wearing my shirt this morning and smelling like me. Heat crawled up her neck. That was expedient. That was intimacy. He stepped closer. You can lie to yourself all you want, Serena. But don't insult my intelligence by pretending last night meant nothing. It meant I was weak. It meant you're human. His hand came up, adjusting an invisible flaw in her hair. And human beings want connection, even when it's complicated, even when it's dangerous. Connection, she laughed bitterly. Is that what you call obsession now? I call it what it is. I want you. You want me. Everything else is just noise. Before she could formulate a response, Anton appeared in the doorway, gesturing toward his watch. We're late, Lucien said. Discussion tabled for now. The restaurant was the kind of place that didn't have prices on the menu. Private room in the back, security at every entrance, the sort of establishment that catered to people who did business away from public scrutiny. Serena's stomach knotted as they were led through hushed dining rooms to a closed door. Who are we meeting? She asked quietly. Business associates. They're expecting to meet you. His hand found the small of her back. Remember what we discussed. You're madly in love with me. Can't keep your hands off me. Completely devoted. I remember. Good girl. The door opened into a private dining room where three men waited. They stood when Lucien entered, but their eyes went straight to Serena, assessing, calculating, cataloging her like she was merchandise instead of a person. Gentlemen, Lucien said smoothly, this is Serena, my girlfriend. The possessiveness in his voice was so convincing she almost believed it herself. The introductions blurred together, names she didn't catch, handshakes that felt like tests, smiles that never reached their eyes. They ordered food, made small talk, and through it all, Serena felt like a specimen under glass. Until the man sitting across from her, Marcus, no relation to her dead boss, leaned back and said, So tell me, Serena, how did you meet our Lucien? The question felt loaded, dangerous. At a restaurant, she said carefully. I was working. He came in for a meeting. And you just fell madly in love? Marcus's smile was sharp. How romantic. It was gradual, Lucien interjected smoothly, his hand finding hers on the table. I kept coming back. She kept smiling at me. Eventually, I asked her out. Just like that. Marcus's eyes stayed on Serena. You didn't think it was strange that a man in Lucien's position would be interested in a waitress? Her spine stiffened. Should I have? Most women would be suspicious. Most women don't see past the surface. She squeezed Lucien's hand, playing the part. I saw who he really was. And who is that? The room had gone very quiet. Serena looked at Lucien, at this beautiful, terrible man who'd killed dozens of people and kidnapped her and somehow convinced her to willingly climb into his bed. Someone worth knowing. The answer seemed to satisfy Marcus. He nodded slowly, raising his glass. To young love, then. May it last. They all drank, but Serena couldn't shake the feeling she'd just passed some kind of test she hadn't known she was taking. Dinner dragged on for another hour. Conversation circled around business. Serena didn't understand shipments and territories and percentages that might have been mundane or might have been criminal. She played her role perfectly, laughing at appropriate moments, touching Lucien's arm, looking at him like he was the center of her universe. It got easier each time. That should have terrified her. They were almost finished when Lucien's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, and something changed in his expression. Subtle, but she'd learned to read him. Excuse me, he said, standing. I need to take this. He left the room, and suddenly Serena was alone with three dangerous men who'd stopped pretending to be civilized. So, Marcus said, leaning forward, let's talk honestly. How much is Lucien paying you? Serena's heart kicked into overdrive. I'm sorry? To play his girlfriend, to sit here and pretend you're in love. Marcus smiled. Come on, we're all adults here. What's the arrangement? There's no arrangement. Everyone knows Lucien doesn't do relationships. Too many complications, too much vulnerability. So either you're spectacularly naive or you're on his payroll. He tilted his head. Which is it? The other men watched her like wolves circling wounded prey. I don't know what you think you know about Lucien, Serena said carefully, but you're wrong. This is real. Is it? Another man spoke up, older, with scars running down one side of his face. Because I knew his last girlfriend, beautiful woman, madly in love with him, or so she claimed, right up until the Russians used her to get to him. She died badly. Serena's blood turned to ice. What? 3 years ago, Elena something. She lasted 6 months before they figured out the vulnerability and exploited it. The scarred man's eyes were cold. Lucien swore he'd never make that mistake again, said relationships were weaknesses he couldn't afford. So forgive us for being skeptical that he'd suddenly change his mind for a waitress. I don't... Her voice cracked. He never mentioned... Of course he didn't, because you're not real. You're a prop, a shield, something to make his enemies think he's vulnerable, when actually he's just playing the same game he always plays. Marcus leaned even closer. So I'll ask one more time. How much is he paying you to pretend? Because whatever it is, it's not enough. The Russians will come for you eventually, and when they do, Lucien will let you die just like he let Elena die. Because that's who he is. The door opened. Lucien stood in the threshold, and the temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. Gentlemen, he said quietly, I believe we're finished here. We were just getting to know your lovely girlfriend, Marcus said, but he stood quickly. The other men followed suit. I'm sure you were. Lucien's smile was terrifying. Anton will show you out. They left without argument, but Marcus paused at the door. Pleasure meeting you, Serena. I hope you survived the experience. Then they were gone, and she was alone with Lucien. What the fuck was that? She breathed. A test, to see if you'd break under pressure. He moved to the table, refilling his wine glass. You didn't. Well done. They said you had a girlfriend before. Elena. They said she died. Lucien's hand stilled on the bottle. That's not relevant to our situation. Not relevant. They said the Russians killed her to get to you. They did. The casual confirmation made her stomach lurch. And you let it happen? I couldn't stop it. His voice was flat. They took her while I was out of the country. By the time I got back, she was already dead. I found her body in a warehouse with a message carved into her skin. Serena pressed her hand to her mouth, tasting bile. The message said, "This is what happens when you care," Lucien continued. So I killed everyone involved, slowly. Then I swore I'd never put myself in that position again. But you put me in that position. No, I put you in a very public position that makes you untouchable. There's a difference. They don't think this is real. They think exactly what I want them to think. He turned to face her fully. Marcus is testing boundaries. Seeing if you're a weakness he can exploit. Your reaction just proved you're not acting, that you actually care, which makes the performance more convincing. Serena's legs felt unsteady. You used me. I protected you. By making them believe this matters to me, I made you too dangerous to touch. He stepped closer. Elena died because I tried to keep her separate from my work. You're surviving because I'm integrating you into it. Do you understand the difference? I understand you're a manipulative bastard who lies about everything. I've never lied to you. You said this was fake. You said it was just a performance. I said we needed to convince people we were together. I never said my feelings weren't real. The words hung between them like a grenade with the pin pulled. You don't have feelings, Serena said. You have obsessions. Call it whatever you want. His hand came up, cradling her face. But don't pretend you don't feel this too. Don't pretend last night was just physical. Don't pretend you didn't mean it when you looked at me tonight and said I was worth knowing. I was acting. No, you weren't. His thumb traced her cheekbone. You were telling the truth, maybe for the first time since this started, and it terrified you. Serena jerked away from his touch, her heart hammering. I want to go home. This is home now. No, it's not. This is a cage and you're my jailer, and nothing about this is real. Then why are you crying? She touched her face and found tears. When had she started crying? Lucien's expression softened fractionally. Come here. No. Serena, I said no. She backed toward the door. I can't do this anymore. I can't pretend to love you while you manipulate everyone around us. I can't be another Elena waiting to die. You're nothing like Elena, because she actually loved you, because she thought this was real and it got her killed. It was real. For the first time, emotion cracked through Lucien's control. I loved her, and they used that love to destroy her. So yes, I learned my lesson. I learned that caring makes you vulnerable, that the only way to survive is to never let anyone matter enough to be used against you. Then what am I? The question echoed in the silence. Lucien stared at her, something raw and terrible in his eyes. You're the exception. You're the one person I can't seem to apply that lesson to. And I don't know if that makes you my salvation or my destruction. I can't be either of those things. Too late. He moved toward her, and she had nowhere left to retreat. You already are. The moment you smiled at me in that restaurant, you became something I couldn't control. And I've been trying to figure out what to do about that ever since. Let me go. No. Lucien, I will burn this entire city to the ground before I let you walk away. His hands framed her face, forcing her to meet his eyes. That's not a threat. That's a promise. You're mine, Serena, whether you accept it or not. She should fight, should scream, should do anything except stand here with his hands on her face and her heart breaking into pieces. But before she could move, his phone rang. Lucien's expression went from intense to deadly in an instant. He pulled the phone out, glanced at the screen, and his entire body went rigid. What? She asked. We need to leave. Now. Why? Because the Russians just sent me a video of your mother. The world stopped. What? The word came out barely a whisper. Lucien turned the phone so she could see. The video showed her mother, older than Serena remembered, grayer, but definitely her mother, sitting in what looked like a cheap motel room. Two men stood behind her, faces obscured. A caption appeared. We have her. Trade by midnight, or she dies. Serena's knees buckled. Lucien caught her, his arm coming around her waist. Stay with me. Breathe. They have my mother's... I know. You said I'd be safe. You said no one would touch me. I said you would be safe. I never said your family was protected. The distinction hit her like a slap. You bastard! I didn't know they'd go after her. His voice was tight. This is a new play. Sergei must be desperate. I don't care about his motivations. She shoved him away. They have my mother. We have to call the police. The police can't help. Then what do we do? Lucien's expression went cold and calculating. We negotiate. Negotiate? They're going to kill her. Not if I give them what they want. Which is what? He looked at her, and the answer was written all over his face. No, Serena breathed. No, no, no. It's you or her, Serena. That's the choice. There has to be another way. Yeah. There isn't. He grabbed his jacket. We have 6 hours to decide. Either you turn yourself over to the Russians, and they probably kill you both anyway, or I attempt a rescue operation that has about a 30% success rate. 30%? I'm being generous. They'll be expecting a move. Sergei's not stupid. Serena's mind spun. This couldn't be happening. Her mother didn't even know she was in New York, didn't know anything about Lucien or the Russians or any of this nightmare. How did they even find her? She asked. Lucien's jaw tightened. That's a very good question. What does that mean? It means they had help. Someone gave them information about your family. Someone who knew details that weren't public. The implication crystallized slowly, horribly. You think you have a leak, Serena said. I know I have a leak. The question is who? He was already moving, phone to his ear, barking orders in rapid French. Anton appeared within seconds, along with 2 other men Serena had never seen before. They spoke in low voices while Serena stood frozen, trying to process that her mother, her estranged, complicated, frustrating mother, was being held hostage by Russian gangsters because Serena had made the mistake of smiling at the wrong man. We're going to my secondary location, Lucien said, disconnecting his call. Somewhere more secure while we figure this out. Figure what out? They want me? Just give me to them and get my mother back. And then they kill you both, and I lose everything. His hands gripped her shoulders. I'm not trading your life for a maybe. We do this my way. Your way got us into this mess. My way is also the only thing keeping you alive. He pulled her toward the door. Come on, we're out of time. The drive to wherever they were going passed in a blur. Serena stared at her phone, her actual phone now, not Lucien's clone, where the video kept auto-repeating, her mother's face, scared but trying not to show it, so much like Serena's own stubborn pride. They'd barely spoken in months. Their last conversation had been a fight about Serena's choices, about throwing her life away on some fantasy of making it in the city. Her mother had wanted her to come home, to be safe, to stop chasing dreams that were going to break her. And now her mother was going to die for those choices. Stop thinking like that, Lucien said. Like what? Like this is your fault. It's not. Isn't it? If I'd never come to New York, then you'd be miserable in Ohio, and the Russians would have eventually found someone else to use against me. This isn't about you, it's about power, about Sergei trying to prove he can touch what's mine. I'm not yours. Yes, you are. No room for argument. And that's why we're going to get your mother back, because hurting what's mine has consequences. The secondary location turned out to be a warehouse in Brooklyn, converted into something that looked like a military command center. Computers lined one wall, weapons lined another, and at least a dozen men moved through the space with professional efficiency. "What is this place?" Serena asked. "Insurance." Lucien was already at one of the computers, pulling up security footage. "I maintain multiple safe houses throughout the city. This one is designed for exactly this type of situation." A woman appeared from a back room, tall, beautiful, with dark hair pulled into a severe ponytail and eyes that assessed Serena like a threat. "This is her?" the woman asked Lucien. "Serena, meet Natasha, my head of security." The girlfriend. Natasha's accent was Russian, which felt ironic given the circumstances. "I've seen the photos." "Is it really you?" Serena asked. "Are you the leak?" Natasha's expression didn't change, but something dangerous flickered in her eyes. She looked at Lucien. "Does she always make wild accusations?" "Only when her mother's life is at stake," Lucien said mildly. "Natasha's been with me for 8 years. She's not the leak." "Then who is?" "We're working on that." He pulled up more screens. The video was sent from a burner phone. Triangulation puts it somewhere in Queens, but that could be misdirection. Natasha's team is running facial recognition on the men in the background. "How long will that take?" "As long as it takes." He turned to face her. "In the meantime, you need to be prepared for what comes next." "What comes next is we get my mother." What comes next," Lucien interrupted, "is we identify the leak, eliminate them, then execute a rescue operation that will probably result in multiple casualties. You need to be prepared for the possibility that your mother doesn't survive this." The bluntness of it stole her breath. "No." "Serena, no, we're getting her back. I don't care what it costs. What it costs is lives." His voice hardened. "Mine, hers, yours, everyone in this room. So before we move forward, I need you to understand what you're asking for." "I'm asking you to save my mother, and I'm telling you the price." He stepped closer. "If we go in hard, people will die. Probably people you'll see. Probably violently. Are you prepared for that?" She thought about Marcus, about Elena, about 63 people whose lives had ended at Lucien's hands. "Yes," she whispered. "Are you prepared to potentially watch your mother die anyway?" Her breath caught. "You said 30%. I lied. It's closer to 10%, maybe less if Sergei's expecting us." "Then what's the point?" "The point is we try anyway. Because the alternative is doing nothing, and I don't do nothing when something of mine is threatened." His hand found her face again. "But you need to understand what this means. If we do this, if we go to war with the Russians over your mother, there's no going back. No pretending this was temporary. No walking away when it gets hard. I don't understand. You will belong to me, completely, publicly, permanently. That's the price for my help." Serena stared at him, finally understanding the trap she'd walked into. He was offering to save her mother, but only if Serena gave up any pretense of freedom forever. "That's blackmail," she breathed. "That's the deal. No apology, no remorse. Choose quickly. We're running out of time." She looked around the warehouse, at the weapons, at the men preparing for violence, at Natasha watching her with those cold, calculating eyes. This was Lucien's world. Death and blood and brutal mathematics about who lived and who died, and he was asking her to dive into it completely, to become the thing she'd sworn she'd never be. His. Really, truly, irrevocably his. "If I say yes," Serena said slowly, "if I agree to this, you promise you'll try to save her? I promise I'll burn Queens to the ground looking for her." "That's not the same thing. It's the best I can offer." Serena closed her eyes, thought about her mother, about their last fight, about all the words left unsaid between them, about how she'd never forgive herself if she didn't at least try. "Okay," she whispered. "Okay, I'm yours. Completely. Just please Please save her. Lucien's expression shifted into something fierce and possessive. Say it clearly. I'm yours, her voice cracked. I belong to you, whatever that means, however long it takes. Just save my mother. He kissed her. Hard and claiming and absolute, and when he pulled back, his eyes had gone dark with something that might have been triumph or might have been genuine emotion. Good girl, he murmured. Now let me do what I do best. He turned to Natasha. Assemble the team, full tactical. I want eyes on every Russian safe house in Queens within the hour. On it. Natasha disappeared, already barking orders. Lucien pulled Serena aside, his hands framing her face. Whatever happens tonight, you stay here. You don't leave this building. You don't contact anyone. Understood? I want to come with you. Absolutely not. She's my mother, which is exactly why you're staying here, where I know you're safe. His grip tightened fractionally. I can't focus on the operation if I'm worried about you catching a bullet. So you stay. That's non-negotiable. Serena wanted to argue, but the look in his eyes stopped her. This was him protecting her the only way he knew how, even if it meant leaving her behind. Promise me you'll bring her back, she said. I promise I'll try. It wasn't enough. But it was all she had. Lucien kissed her once more, gentler this time, almost tender, then moved into tactical planning mode. Serena watched him transform from the man who'd held her last night into something harder, colder, built entirely for violence. This was who he really was. Not the cultured gentleman in expensive suits, not the obsessed lover whispering promises in the dark. This was Lucien Devereux, professional killer, giving orders to men who'd follow him into hell, and she'd just agreed to belong to him forever. The team left an hour later, 12 men including Lucien, armed with enough weapons to start a small war. Anton stayed behind with Serena, along with 2 others for security. She sat in front of the computer screens, watching them disappear into the night, and wondered if she'd just made the worst decision of her life. Or if she'd made it weeks ago, when she'd smiled at a dangerous man and caught his attention. The minutes crawled past. 30 minutes. An hour. 90 minutes. Her phone stayed silent. Serena paced the warehouse, her heels clicking against concrete, while Anton watched impassively. She wanted to scream, wanted to break something, wanted to rewind time to before any of this started. But time only moved forward, and somewhere in Queens, Lucien was either saving her mother or getting himself killed. 2 hours in, her phone finally buzzed. Unknown number. Her hand shook as she answered. Hello? Miss Morgan. The voice was male, heavily accented, Russian. We need to talk about your boyfriend's very stupid decision to attack my men. Serena's blood ran cold. Who is this? Sergei Volkov, and I'm calling to inform you that Lucien just walked into a trap. By the time he realizes, it will be too late. What have you done? What I should have done weeks ago. Eliminated a problem. She could hear the smile in his voice. Your mother is already dead. Has been for hours. The video was old footage. We killed her the moment we grabbed her. The world tilted. No, Serena breathed. And now Lucien is surrounded by 50 of my best men in a building rigged to explode. He has approximately 3 minutes to escape before the whole structure comes down. You're lying. Am I? Tell me, Miss Morgan, was your great love worth your mother's life? Was spreading your legs for a monster worth watching everything you cared about burn? Serena's legs gave out. I'll give you one chance to save him, Sergei continued. Turn yourself over to my men at this location within the hour. Come alone. Come willing. And I'll call off the explosion. Lucien lives. You die instead. That's the trade. How do I know you'll keep your word? You don't. But it's the only option you have. He rattled off an address in Brooklyn, barely 3 blocks from the warehouse. 1 hour, Miss Morgan. Tick-tock. The line went dead. Serena sat on the cold concrete floor, the phone falling from her nerveless fingers, and felt the last pieces of her old self finally shatter. Her mother was dead. Lucien was about to die, and the only way to save him was to sacrifice herself to a man who'd probably kill her anyway. This was the trap, the real one. Not the Russians threatening her mother, but forcing her to choose between the life she'd known and the monster she'd fallen for, between who she'd been and who she was becoming. Anton approached, his expression concerned. Serena looked up at him, at this loyal soldier who'd been ordered to keep her safe, and made her decision. "I need to leave," she said. Anton shook his head, pointing at his watch. "Lucien's orders." "I know what Lucien said, but everything's changed." She stood on shaking legs. "Sergei just called. It's a trap. The whole thing was a trap, and if I don't go to him, Lucien dies." Anton's eyes narrowed. He pulled out his phone, typing quickly. "Boss's orders. You stay." "Then you're going to have to stop me physically," Serena said. "Because I'm walking out that door right now." She moved toward the exit. Anton stepped in front of her, blocking the way. They stood there in tense silence, this scarred soldier following his orders, and the woman who'd just agreed to belong to his boss forever. "Please," Serena whispered, "if you care about Lucien at all, let me do this. Let me save him." Something flickered in Anton's expression. Then slowly, reluctantly, he stepped aside. Serena ran. Out into the Brooklyn night, toward an address where death was waiting, toward a choice that would define everything that came after. She didn't have a plan, didn't have weapons, didn't have anything except the certainty that she couldn't let Lucien die for her. Even if it meant dying for him instead. Even if it meant becoming exactly what she'd sworn she'd never be. A woman so desperate to save a monster that she'd become monstrous herself. 3 blocks had never felt so far. By the time Serena reached the address Sergei had given, her feet were bleeding from running in heels, and her lungs burned from exertion and fear. The building was abandoned, old factory, broken windows, the kind of place where bad things happened and nobody heard you scream. Perfect place for a murder. 2 men waited outside. They grabbed her the moment she approached, patting her down for weapons with brutal efficiency. "She's clean," one said into a radio. "Bring her in," came the response. They dragged her inside through corridors that smelled like rot and rust, into a large open room where Sergei Volkov waited. He was older than she expected, maybe 60, with gray hair and the kind of face that had seen every terrible thing the world offered and participated in most of them. He smiled when he saw her. "Miss Morgan, so glad you could join us." Serena lifted her chin, refusing to show fear. "I'm here. Call off the explosion." Such demands from such a small woman. He circled her slowly. "Do you even know what you are to Lucien? A toy, an amusement, something he'll discard the moment you become inconvenient." "You're wrong." "Am I?" "He let Elena die. He'll let you die too." "Then why do you want me?" Sergei's smile widened. "Because killing you will hurt him more than anything else I could do. And I've been waiting 3 years to make him hurt." Serena's stomach dropped. "The explosion." "There is no explosion. That building is empty. Has been for months. I just needed you desperate enough to do something stupid." He gestured to his men. "Like walking voluntarily into my hands." She'd been played. Completely, thoroughly played. "So what now?" she asked, voice steadier than she felt. "Now?" Sergei pulled a gun from his jacket. "Now I send Lucien a video of his precious girlfriend begging for her life. Then I kill you slowly. Then I send him the pieces." He raised the weapon. And Serena realized that this was it. The end. Not in Lucien's arms or fighting for survival, but alone in a factory, outsmarted by a man who wanted revenge more than reason. She closed her eyes, waited for the bullet, heard the gunshot, felt nothing. Serena's eyes snapped open. Sergei was staring at the hole in his chest, expression more surprised than pained. He looked up, past Serena, toward the doorway. Lucien stood there, gun still raised, expression absolutely murderous. "Mine," he said quietly. Then all hell broke loose. The gunshot echoed through the warehouse like thunder, and for one suspended moment, everything froze. Sergei staring at the blood blooming across his chest, his men reaching for weapons, Serena standing in the middle of it all with her heart trying to beat its way out of her ribs. Then Lucien moved. He fired twice more in rapid succession, dropping the 2 men closest to Serena before they could clear their holsters. His team poured through the doorway behind him, Natasha first, moving with lethal precision, followed by the others in a coordinated assault that turned the warehouse into a kill box. Serena hit the floor on instinct, hands over her head, as gunfire erupted from all directions. The sound was deafening, not like movies, but physical, concussive, each shot a punch to the chest. Bullets tore through metal and concrete, ricocheting with deadly whines. Someone screamed. Someone else's scream cut off abruptly. A hand grabbed her arm. She looked up into Lucien's face, spattered with blood that wasn't his, eyes wild with something between rage and relief. "Stay down!" he shouted over the chaos. Then he was moving again, weapon tracking targets with professional efficiency. Serena watched him kill 3 men in as many seconds, each shot placed with surgical precision. This wasn't the cultured gentleman from dinner parties. This wasn't even the obsessed lover from last night. This was a weapon in human form, and it was terrifying how beautiful he looked doing it. The firefight lasted maybe 2 minutes, but felt like hours. When the last Russian fell and the echoes finally died, Serena's ears were ringing so loudly she could barely hear her own breathing. Lucien was back at her side immediately, hands running over her body, checking for injuries. "Are you hurt? Serena, look at me. Are you hurt?" "No." Her voice sounded distant, muffled. I don't think so." "What the fuck were you thinking?" His control was fracturing, real emotion bleeding through. "I told you to stay at the warehouse. I told Anton." Sergei called. "He said it was a trap. He said you were going to die." The words tumbled out in a rush. "He said my mother was already dead and the only way to save you was to trade myself." "Your mother is alive." Serena's brain stuttered. "What?" "Skum. Your mother is alive. We found her 20 minutes ago in a storage facility in Queens. She's shaken but unharmed." His hands cupped her face, forcing her to focus. "The call was a lie. All of it. Sergei was trying to draw you out. But he said, the video, old footage like he told you. We verified it with the timestamp. She's been with us since we extracted her." Relief hit Serena so hard she couldn't breathe. "She's alive?" "Yes." "You're sure?" "I'm sure." Lucien's expression was raw. "Which is why I'm trying very hard not to kill you myself for walking into this trap." "I thought you were dying. So you decided to die instead." His voice rose. "Without telling anyone? Without a plan? You just walked into Sergei's hands like a fucking sacrifice?" "What else was I supposed to do?" "Trust me." The words came out like they'd been ripped from somewhere deep. "Trust that I would handle it. Trust that I wouldn't let them take anything from me, especially you." Across the warehouse, Natasha was directing cleanup. Bodies were being checked, weapons collected, evidence managed with frightening efficiency. This was routine for them. Just another Tuesday night in Lucien's world. Serena's world now, apparently. "I couldn't lose you," she whispered. "I know that's insane. I know I should hate you, but when he said you were going to die, I couldn't." Lucien kissed her, hard and desperate and tasting like gunpowder and fear. His hands tangled in her hair, holding her like she might disappear if he let go. When he pulled back, his eyes were burning. "Don't ever do that again." "Which part?" "Any of it. The running, the sacrificing, the making me think I'd lost you before I ever really had you. You don't have me." "Yes, I do. Not an argument, a certainty. You just proved it. You walked into death for me. That's not strategy. That's not survival. That's..." He stopped, seeming to struggle with the words. "That's what?" Serena asked. "That's love," said quietly, like he was afraid of the word. "Isn't it?" Her throat closed up. Because he was right. Somewhere between the kidnapping and the killing and the impossible choices, she'd fallen in love with a monster. And it was the worst thing she'd ever done to herself. "I don't want to love you," she said. "I know." His thumb traced her lips. "But you do anyway." Before she could respond, Natasha appeared beside them. "We need to move. NYPD will be responding to the gunfire within minutes." Lucien nodded, still looking at Serena. "Can you walk?" "Yes." "Then let's go. We'll talk more when we're somewhere safe." Safe? The word felt foreign. Serena didn't think she'd ever feel safe again. They left through a back entrance, stepping over bodies and spent shell casings. Outside, 3 black SUVs waited with engines running. Lucien then guided Serena into the middle vehicle, climbing in beside her while Natasha took the front passenger seat. The convoy pulled away just as sirens became audible in the distance. Serena stared at her hands. They were shaking. Everything was shaking now that the adrenaline was wearing off, leaving behind the awful reality of what she'd just witnessed. She'd watched people die tonight, watched Lucien kill them, and felt grateful instead of horrified. "Where are we going?" she asked. "Safe house in Connecticut. It's about 2 hours away, fully secure, and nobody except my inner circle knows it exists." Lucien hadn't let go of her hand. "Your mother is already there waiting." "I need to see her." "You will? Soon." He squeezed her fingers gently. "First, we need to discuss what happens next." "What do you mean?" "I mean, Sergei Volkov isn't dead. The shot hit his lung, not his heart. By now, he's either in surgery or dead from blood loss, but his organization doesn't die with him. His lieutenants will want revenge." Serena's stomach dropped. "So this isn't over." "This is never over." Lucien's voice was tired. "That's the world you're in now. One threat gets eliminated, another rises to take its place. It's an endless cycle." "Then what's the point?" "The point is surviving each cycle, getting strong enough that people stop testing you." He looked at her directly. "The point is holding on to what matters, no matter what it costs." "And what matters to you?" "You." No hesitation. "Everything else is negotiable." The admission should have felt romantic. Instead, it felt like a chain settling around her neck. They drove in silence for a while, leaving the city lights behind for darker highways cutting through Connecticut suburbs. Serena watched the landscape blur past and tried to process everything that had happened in the past 12 hours. Her mother was alive. That was the important thing. Everything else, the violence, the lies, the impossible situation she'd walked into, that could be dealt with later. "Tell me about Elena," she said suddenly. Lucien's expression shuddered. "Why?" "Because Marcus used her against me. Because Sergei used her against you. Because I need to know what happened to the last woman who loved you." He was quiet for so long she thought he might not answer. Then, "Elena was an art dealer. We met at a gallery opening 5 years ago. She was brilliant, funny, completely uninterested in my reputation. For 6 months, I thought I could actually have something normal." "What changed?" "Sergei found out about her, started following her, learning her routines. I didn't know until it was too late." His jaw tightened. "They took her from her apartment while I was in Paris handling a contract dispute. By the time I got the ransom demand, she'd already been dead for 3 hours." "I'm sorry." "Don't be. It was my fault. I let my guard down. Let myself believe I could separate my personal life from my professional one. Elena died because I was naive enough to think love could exist in a vacuum." Serena studied his profile in the dim light. "Is that why you're doing all this differently with me? Integrating me into your world instead of hiding me from it?" "Yes." "Because you think it'll keep me alive." "Because I know it will." He turned to meet her eyes. "Elena died because she was a secret. You'll survive because you're public. Because everyone knows exactly what you are to me. Your girlfriend." "My obsession," said matter-of-factly. "My weakness that I've weaponized, the one thing I'll kill for without hesitation." "That's not healthy." "No. But it's honest." His hand found hers again. "I'm not offering you normal, Serena. I'm offering you survival, protection, a life that's terrifying and violent and completely yours if you want it. And if I don't want it, then I'll still protect you, but you'll hate yourself for accepting it." The brutal honesty of it stole her breath. They reached the safe house around 4 a.m., a sprawling property hidden behind trees and security gates, the kind of place that looked like a normal wealthy person's estate, but was clearly built for siege conditions. Armed guards patrolled the perimeter. Cameras covered every angle. Nothing got close without being seen. Lucien's hand stayed on Serena's back as they entered through a side door, guiding her through hallways that looked simultaneously luxurious and tactical. Everything here had dual purpose: the expensive artwork hiding security panels, the beautiful furniture positioned to provide cover, the open floor plan offering clear sightlines. "She's in the East Wing," Natasha said, appearing from somewhere. "Second door. Doctor's with her now, but she's stable." "Thank you." Lucien looked at Serena. "Go. I'll be right behind you." Serena didn't need to be told twice. She practically ran down the indicated hallway, her bleeding feet leaving faint marks on expensive carpet, her heart in her throat. The door was ajar. She pushed it open. Her mother sat on a bed, looking small and old, and nothing like the formidable woman Serena remembered. A doctor was checking her blood pressure, murmuring reassurances, When she looked up and saw Serena, her face crumpled. Mom, Serena. Her voice was hoarse. Oh my God, Serena. They met in the middle of the room, colliding in a hug that felt like coming home and breaking apart simultaneously. Her mother was crying, and Serena realized she was crying too, both of them holding on like the world was ending. I'm so sorry, Serena gasped. I'm so sorry. This is all my fault. What? No, sweetheart, no. Her mother pulled back, hands framing Serena's face. Those men said you were in trouble, said they needed my help to protect you. I thought I was helping. You were kidnapped because of me, because of choices I made. What choices? I don't understand any of this. Her mother's eyes were red, frightened. The university called saying you had a family emergency. Then these men showed up claiming you were in danger. Then other men came and there was shooting. And, Serena, what's happening? Who are these people? Serena's mouth opened, but nothing came out. How did you explain this? How did you tell your mother that you'd fallen in love with a criminal, that you'd traded your freedom for protection, that you were now part of a world where kidnapping and murder were just business as usual? It's complicated, she managed. Then uncomplicate it. Her mother's voice gained some of its old steel. Because I just spent 6 hours terrified I was going to die, and I deserve to know why. Movement in the doorway made them both turn. Lucien stood there, and Serena watched her mother's expression shift from confusion to recognition to something like horror. You, her mother breathed. You were in the photos. The gala. Mrs. Morgan. Lucien inclined his head politely. I apologize for the circumstances of our meeting. You're her boyfriend. Not a question, an accusation. Yes. And those men, they took me because of you? Yes. Her mother stood, and despite being several inches shorter and unarmed, she somehow made Lucien look like the one at a disadvantage. What have you done to my daughter? Mom, Serena started, I'm talking to him. Her mother's eyes never left Lucien. What have you done to my daughter? Lucien met her gaze steadily. I've kept her alive. Everything else is between us. Everything else? Her mother looked at Serena, really looked, and something in her expression cracked. Oh, honey, what has he turned you into? The question hit like a physical blow. I'm fine, Serena said automatically. You're not fine, you're terrified, and you're lying to yourself about it. Her mother's voice softened. I know that look. That's the look of someone trying to convince themselves they're okay when they're falling apart. I'm handling it by sleeping with a criminal? Her mother gestured at Lucien. By getting involved in whatever nightmare got me kidnapped? I didn't have a choice. There's always a choice, Serena. No, there isn't. The words exploded out of her. You don't understand what happened, the danger I was in. The men who were hunting me, Lucien saved me by making you his prisoner, by giving me options when everyone else wanted me dead. Silence fell heavy and terrible. Her mother's face went pale. Dead? Serena, what are you talking about? And there it was, the moment where Serena had to explain the whole awful truth to the woman who'd wanted nothing more than for her daughter to be safe. She sat on the bed, suddenly exhausted. My manager was laundering money for criminals. I didn't know. But they thought I did, and they were going to kill me to eliminate the risk. Lucien extracted me before they could. Extracted you? Kidnapped me, saved me. Take your pick. Serena's voice was flat. Either way, I ended up here, in his world. And now I can't leave. Her mother looked between them, understanding slowly dawning. How long? 3 weeks. 3 weeks. Her mother pressed her hands to her face. You've been missing for 3 weeks, and I didn't even know. I thought you were just busy with school. He cloned my phone, made it look like I was fine. Jesus Christ, her mother rounded on Lucien. You've been holding my daughter for 3 weeks? That's kidnapping. That's illegal. It's survival, Lucien said calmly, and the alternative was her death. I chose the option that kept her breathing. You chose the option that gave you control. Yes. No apology. Because in my experience, control is the only thing that prevents people I care about from dying badly. You don't care about her. You're obsessed with her. There's a difference. Is there? Lucien tilted his head slightly. I've kept her fed, clothed, safe, and alive. I've eliminated threats against her. I've restructured my entire operation around protecting her. Call it obsession if you want, but the results are the same. The results are my daughter trapped in a relationship with a monster. Yes, still no apology. But she's trapped alive, which is better than the alternative. Serena's mother looked at her. Do you love him? The question hung in the air like smoke. Serena's voice caught. It's not that simple. It's very simple. Do you love him? Mom, answer the question, Serena. She thought about last night, about this morning, about the moment she'd realized Lucien might die and felt her world collapse. Yes, she whispered. I think I do. Her mother's expression broke. Oh, sweetheart. I know it's wrong. It's not about wrong. It's about survival. Her mother sat beside her, taking her hands. I've lived long enough to know that sometimes we fall in love with people who are terrible for us. Sometimes we can't help it, but we can choose what we do about it. What am I supposed to do? I don't know. Her mother glanced at Lucien, who was watching them both with unreadable eyes. But I know you can't stay with someone out of fear. That's not love. That's Stockholm Syndrome. It's not, Serena started, then stopped. Was it? Had she fallen in love, or had she just convinced herself loving her captor was easier than fighting? Give us a minute, Lucien said quietly. I'm not leaving my daughter alone with you. She's not alone. She's making a choice. He looked at Serena. I'll be outside. Take whatever time you need. He left, closing the door behind him. The silence felt suffocating. Tell me the truth, her mother said. Not what you think I want to hear. The actual truth. Do you want to be here? Serena opened her mouth to say no, to say she'd been forced, to say every single thing that had happened was against her will, but that would be a lie. I don't know anymore, she admitted. At first I was terrified. I hated him. I wanted to escape, but then what? Then he became the only safe thing in my world. Then I started seeing past the violence to the person underneath. Then I realized that for the first time in my life, someone was choosing me, not tolerating me or using me or expecting me to be convenient, actually choosing me, making me a priority. That's not love, honey. That's obsession. Maybe, Serena looked at her hands, but maybe obsession is the only kind of love that survives in his world, and maybe I'm okay with that. Her mother was quiet for a long time. Do you know what your father was like? The non sequitur threw her. What? Your father, before he left. He was obsessed with me too, consumed by it. I thought it was romantic at first, thought it meant he loved me more than anything. Her mother's voice went distant. But obsession isn't love. Obsession is possession. And eventually, when I didn't live up to whatever fantasy he'd built in his head, he left, found someone new to obsess over. Lucien isn't like that. How do you know? Because he's had plenty of opportunities to discard me and hasn't. Because he just burned down half of Brooklyn trying to save you. Because, Serena's voice cracked. Because when I thought he was going to die, I was willing to trade my life for his without hesitation. That has to mean something. Her mother pulled her into another hug, and they sat there for a while, just holding each other. I can't tell you what to do, her mother said finally. You're an adult. You make your own choices. But I can tell you this. If you stay with him, you need to do it with your eyes open. Don't lie to yourself about what he is. Don't pretend the violence will stop or the danger will pass. This is who he is. This is the life you're choosing. I know. And you're choosing it anyway? Serena pulled back, meeting her mother's eyes. Yes, I'm choosing it anyway. Her mother nodded slowly, something like resignation crossing her face. Then I guess all I can do is make sure you survive it. What does that mean? It means I'm not leaving, not until I know you're actually safe and not just telling yourself you are. Mom, you can't stay here. Watch me. Her mother's voice gained that familiar stubborn edge. That man out there thinks he can protect my daughter? Fine. but I'm going to make damn sure he follows through. Despite everything, Serena almost smiled. You're going to babysit my criminal boyfriend? I'm going to make sure he treats you right, and if he doesn't... Her mother's eyes went hard. Well, I've survived worse than him. Serena doubted that, but didn't argue. When they emerged from the room, Lucien was waiting in the hallway. He looked between them, reading the situation with that eerie precision he had. Mrs. Morgan will be staying as our guest, he said. Not a question. Until I'm satisfied my daughter is safe, Serena's mother confirmed. That a problem? No, I'll have a room prepared. He looked at Serena. We need to talk. Strategy meeting in 20 minutes. About what? About what comes next. His expression was grim. Sergei survived surgery, which means the Russians are going to retaliate. Hard. Serena's stomach dropped. I thought, when you shot him, I aimed for the lung because I wanted him to suffer, not die quickly. A mistake in retrospect. Lucien ran a hand through his hair. His organization is already mobilizing. We have maybe 12 hours before they move against us. So what do? We finish this. His eyes met hers. Permanently. The strategy meeting happened in what looked like a dining room, but was clearly designed as a command center. Maps covered the table, laptops open showing security feeds, and Lucien's entire inner circle gathered around. Natasha, Anton, and half a dozen others whose names Serena didn't know. Sergei's in a private hospital in Manhattan, Natasha said, pulling up blueprints on a screen. 30 guards minimum, police protection, full medical staff. It's a fortress. Then we make it a tomb, Lucien said. You want to attack a hospital? Serena's voice came out higher than intended. I want to eliminate a threat before it eliminates us. He didn't look at her. Sergei won't stop, ever. As long as he's alive, you're in danger. Your mother is in danger. Everyone connected to me is in danger. So you're going to kill him in his hospital bed? Yes. The casual certainty of it made her skin crawl. That's murder. That's war. Lucien finally looked at her. And war has rules. Rule 1. Eliminate leadership before they rally their forces. There has to be another way. There isn't. Natasha's voice was flat. Sergei's already put out contracts on everyone in this room, $5 million per head. We don't move first, we die. Serena looked around the table at these people who'd become her unwilling family. Anton, who'd let her run into danger. Natasha, who'd extracted her mother. Lucien, who'd burned the world for her. When? She asked. Tonight, before his people can organize. Lucien's hand found hers under the table. But you're staying here. Like hell I am. Serena, I'm done sitting on the sidelines while you risk your life for me. I'm going. Absolutely not. You don't get to decide, Yes, I do. His control finally cracked. You think I can focus on the operation if I'm worried about you catching a bullet? You think I can do what needs to be done if you're there watching? You stay here where you're safe. Nothing about this is safe. They stared at each other across the table, and Serena saw real fear in his eyes for the first time. He was terrified of losing her, not because she was useful or convenient or part of his plans, because he actually loved her. The realization hit like lightning. I stay here, she said quietly, but you come back, that's the deal. I'll come back. Promise me. I promise. He kissed her then, in front of everyone, claiming and desperate and absolutely certain. When he pulled away, his forehead rested against hers. Don't make me regret loving you, he whispered. Don't make me regret loving you back. The team mobilized within the hour. Serena watched from the command center as they loaded weapons, checked equipment, transformed from business people into soldiers. Lucien was the last to gear up, strapping on body armor with practiced efficiency. He found her before leaving. If something goes wrong, nothing's going wrong. If it does, he continued, Natasha has instructions. Money, documents, everything you need to disappear. You and your mother both. I'm not running. Yes, you are. His hands framed her face. Promise me. If I don't come back, you run. You don't try to get revenge. You don't try to take over. You just run and never look back. Lucien, promise me, Serena. She could see in his eyes that this mattered, that for all his talk of obsession and ownership, what he actually wanted was her survival, even if it meant surviving without him. "I promise," she whispered. He kissed her once more, then he was gone. The waiting was worse than anything that had come before. Serena sat in the command center with her mother, watching security feeds and tracking the team's progress through Manhattan. They moved like shadows, converging on the hospital from multiple angles. "He'll come back," her mother said quietly. "You don't know that." "No, but I know he loves you enough to try." On screen, the team breached the hospital's service entrance. Serena's heart climbed into her throat as they moved through corridors past nurses and security, heading towards Sergei's private wing. Then the feed cut out. "What happened?" Serena demanded. The tech operator was frantically typing. "They've jammed our signal. I'm trying to reestablish. Get it back! Working on it!" 5 minutes passed. 10. 15. Serena's hands were shaking so badly she had to sit on them. 20 minutes. Her phone rang. Unknown number. She answered with trembling hands. "Hello? Miss Morgan?" Sergei's voice, weak but alive. "We need to discuss terms of your surrender." "What did you do?" "What I should have done from the beginning. I let your boyfriend walk into a trap. Again." She could hear the smile in his voice. "He's standing in my hospital room right now, gun to his head. 30 of my men surrounding him. And you're going to trade yourself for his life." "Don't!" Lucien's voice in the background, strained. "Don't do it, Serena!" The sound of a gunshot. Not fatal. She could still hear Lucien breathing, but hurt. "That was his knee," Sergei said. "The next one is his head unless you're standing in front of this hospital in 30 minutes. Come alone. Come unarmed. Or watch me execute him on live stream." The line went dead. Serena stood, the world tilting beneath her feet. "No," her mother said immediately. "Serena, no. I have to. It's a trap. I know." She was already moving, grabbing keys, a jacket, anything. "But I can't let him die. I can't. Then let me help." Her mother grabbed her arm. "You don't have to do this alone." "Yes, I do. These are my choices. My consequences." Serena pulled free gently. "Make sure you run if this goes badly. Promise me." "Serena, promise me, Mom." Her mother's face crumpled, but she nodded. "I promise." Serena ran. Out to the garage, into one of the waiting SUVs, through security gates that opened automatically. The drive back to Manhattan was a blur of speed and terror and desperate planning. She had no weapons, no backup, no plan except walking into certain death and hoping something would break her way. 30 minutes later, she stood in front of the hospital where Lucien was bleeding, alone, exactly as Sergei had demanded. The front doors opened and 2 men emerged. They grabbed her roughly, patting her down, confirming she was unarmed. "Inside," one said. They dragged her through a side entrance, up service stairs, down corridors that smelled like antiseptic and fear. Each step took her closer to whatever ending this story had been building toward. They reached Sergei's room. The doors opened. Lucien was on his knees in the center, hands zip-tied behind his back, blood pooling beneath his shattered knee. His face was bruised, one eye swelling shut, but when he saw her, his expression twisted into pure anguish. "No," he breathed. "Serena, no." Sergei sat propped in his hospital bed, oxygen tubes in his nose, bandages across his chest. He looked half dead, but his eyes were sharp with triumph. "Miss Morgan, so glad you could join us." He gestured to his men. "Bring her here." They forced Serena forward until she stood beside Lucien. "Now," Sergei said, "we're going to have a conversation about consequences." He pulled a gun from beneath his sheets. "You see, I've spent 3 years planning revenge against the man who killed my brother. 3 years building to this moment. And you," he pointed the gun at Serena, "you are the perfect ending." "Don't," Lucien said, his voice breaking. "Please, whatever you want, whatever it takes, just let her go." "Whatever I want?" Sergei laughed, wet and pained. "I want you to know what it feels like. To love something and watch it die. To be powerless while everything you care about bleeds out in front of you." He cocked the gun, aimed at Serena's head, and time seemed to slow. Serena looked at Lucien, at this beautiful, terrible man who'd kidnapped her and saved her and loved her with an intensity that had consumed them both. "I don't regret it," she said. "Any of it." His eyes filled with tears. Sergei's finger tightened on the trigger. The window exploded inward. Glass and gunfire erupted simultaneously as Natasha came through in a shower of destruction, weapon firing with surgical precision. The Russians scattered, returning fire, and the hospital room became a war zone. Lucien lunged forward despite his shattered knee, tackling Serena to the ground as bullets screamed overhead. His body covered hers, protecting her even broken and bleeding. "Stay down," he shouted. The firefight was brutal and close. No room for error, no space for hesitation. Serena watched from the floor as Natasha killed her way through the room with terrifying efficiency, as Anton appeared from nowhere and cut Lucien's hands free, as the man she loved grabbed a fallen weapon and put 3 rounds into Sergei Volkov's chest. This time, they didn't miss the heart. Sergei slumped back against his pillows, blood bubbling from his lips, eyes going distant. "This?" he gasped. "This isn't over." "Yes, it is," Lucien said. He fired once more, and Sergei Volkov finally died. The room went quiet except for ringing ears and harsh breathing. Lucien turned to Serena, his face a mask of blood and fury and relief. "You came." "Of course I came. I told you not to, and I didn't listen." She touched his face gently. "We're kind of terrible at following each other's orders." He laughed, pained and real. "Yeah, we really are." Then his knee gave out, and he collapsed. "Lucien!" Serena caught him, or tried to. He was too heavy, too hurt. Natasha was there immediately, Anton helping support his weight. "Hospital," Natasha said. "Real one. Now." "No hospitals," Lucien ground out. "Too exposed. You're bleeding out, you stubborn bastard. Hospital or you die." He looked at Serena. "What do you think?" Despite everything, the violence, the fear, the impossibility of their situation, she almost smiled. He was asking her opinion, treating her like an equal, like a partner. "Hospital," she said. "We'll deal with the exposure." "All right." His eyes were starting to unfocus. "All right. But you're coming with me." "Obviously. And we're getting married after this." Serena's breath caught. "What?" "Married. Official. Can't lose you to legal bullshit if something happens." His hand found hers, weak but certain. "Marry me, Serena." "You're delirious from blood loss. I'm clear-headed for the first time in my life. Marry me." She looked at this ridiculous, dangerous, impossible man who'd stolen her life and then given it back, transformed into something she barely recognized, and realized that somewhere along the way, she'd stopped wanting her old life back. "Ask me again when you're not dying," she said. "That's not a no. It's not a yes either." "Good enough." He smiled through the pain. "I can work with that." They got him out of the hospital and into an ambulance, a real one this time, driven by people on Natasha's payroll. Serena climbed in beside him, holding his hand while paramedics worked on his knee. "Vitals are dropping," one said. "We need to move faster." The ambulance accelerated, sirens screaming. Lucien's eyes found Serena's. If this goes badly, it won't. But if it does, then I'll burn the world down looking for revenge," she said, "just like you would for me." He smiled. "There's my girl." Then his eyes rolled back and the machine started screaming and everything became chaos. Serena held his hand through all of it, through the emergency surgery, through the 12 hours in the ICU, through the moment the doctors said he'd probably lost too much blood and she should prepare for the worst. She didn't prepare. She just held on and refused to let go. Because that's what you did when you loved a monster. You became monstrous yourself. You survived, and you fought like hell for every second you got, even if the whole world burned in the process. Lucien woke up 36 hours later, groggy and disoriented, and immediately asking for her. Serena was right there, exactly where she'd been since they'd wheeled him into surgery. "Hey," she said softly. "Hey," his voice was hoarse. "You're still here." "Where else would I be?" "Smart, safe, away from me." He tried to smile. Somewhere better than this. There is nowhere better than this. She laced her fingers through his. You asked me something before you passed out. I asked several things. One in particular. His eyes focused on her face. Marriage. Yeah? Still asking. Serena took a deep breath, thought about her mother waiting at the safe house, about the life she'd left behind, about the woman she'd been 3 weeks ago who would have been horrified by everything she'd become. Then she thought about the woman she was now, harder, sharper, capable of walking into death without flinching. A woman who'd found something worth fighting for in the middle of a nightmare. Yes, she said. Lucien's expression transformed. Yes? Yes. I'll marry you. I'll be yours. Officially, publicly, permanently. She leaned closer. But I have conditions. Of course you do. He was smiling now, real and unguarded. Name them. First, you teach me to shoot. I'm done being defenseless. Agreed. Second, I finish my degree, online, in person, whatever, but I finish. Done. Third, she paused. Third, you promise me that when this world finally destroys you, you'll let me go. You won't drag me down with you. You'll give me an out. Lucien's smile faded. No. Lucien, no. I won't promise that. Because if I'm going down, you're the only reason I'd fight to survive. Promising to let you go is promising to die. His hand tightened on hers. I'll give you everything else, but not that. She should argue, should insist, should build in some escape clause for when the inevitable disaster struck. But looking at him, broken and bloodied and absolutely certain, she realized she didn't want an escape clause. She wanted exactly this. The terrifying, all-consuming certainty that they'd burn together or not at all. Okay, she whispered. Okay. No escape clause. Just us. Just us. He pulled her down into a kiss that tasted like hospital antiseptic and blood and promise. Outside, the city continued its endless churning. Inside, Serena Morgan, soon to be Serena Devereux, held on to the monster she loved and prepared for whatever came next. Because this story wasn't ending, it was just beginning. The wedding happened 3 months later in a private estate overlooking the Hudson River, and it was nothing like Serena had imagined weddings should be. There was no white dress. She wore deep crimson, the color of wine or blood depending on the light. No traditional vows. They wrote their own, stripped of poetry and full of brutal honesty. No guests who didn't carry weapons. Every person in attendance was either family or had killed for Lucien at some point, sometimes both. Serena's mother sat in the front row wearing an expression that suggested she was still processing how her daughter's life had led to this moment. She'd stayed at the safe house for 6 weeks after Sergei's death, watching Lucien recover, observing how he and Serena moved around each other like binary stars locked in gravitational pull. Eventually, she'd stopped asking if Serena was sure and started asking practical questions about security protocols and exit strategies. She'd accepted it, in her way. Accepted that her daughter had fallen in love with a monster and was choosing to stay anyway. Lucien stood at the altar looking devastating in a black suit that probably cost more than most people's cars, his left leg still slightly stiff from where they'd reconstructed his knee with titanium and determination. The doctors had said he'd never walk without a cane. He'd proven them wrong through sheer stubborn refusal to show weakness. That was who he was. Someone who looked at impossibility and broke it over his knee. Someone Serena had somehow agreed to spend her life with. The officiant, a judge who owed Lucien several favors, cleared his throat. We are gathered here today to witness the union of Lucien Devereux and Serena Morgan. The couple has chosen to speak their own vows. Lucien? Lucien took Serena's hands, his pale eyes intense in the afternoon light. I'm not going to promise you normal. I can't promise you safe. What I can promise is that every day for the rest of my life, you will be my priority, my obsession, the thing I protect above everything else, including myself. I will burn cities for you. I will destroy anyone who threatens you, and I will love you with an intensity that terrifies me because I've never wanted anything the way I want you. His voice was steady, but Serena could feel the faint tremor in his hands. I know what I am, he continued. I know the blood on my hands and the darkness in my soul, but you looked at all of it and chose me anyway. So I'm choosing you back. Forever. Completely. No escape clauses. The last part was directed at her with a slight smile. Serena's throat was tight. My turn? Your turn. She took a breath. 3 months ago, I thought my life was falling apart. I was drowning in debt and exhaustion, and the belief that I had to do everything alone. Then you kidnapped me. Scattered laughter from the audience. You terrified me, Serena said. You manipulated me. You made decisions about my life without asking. You were controlling and obsessive and absolutely certain you knew what was best for me. And somehow, in the middle of all that, you also saved me. Not just from the Russians, from myself, from the belief that accepting help was weakness, from the idea that I had to shrink myself to survive. Her eyes were burning now, but she pushed through. You taught me that love doesn't have to be gentle to be real, that sometimes the people who care about us most are the ones who refuse to let us give up, even when we want to. You're not perfect. Neither am I. But we're perfect for each other in our completely imperfect way. So yes, I'm choosing you. The violence and the danger and the impossible life. Because somewhere in all of that is something worth fighting for. She paused. Also, you're really good in bed, which helps. Lucien laughed, real and surprised and completely unguarded. The judge smiled. Do you, Lucien Devereux, take this woman to be your lawfully wedded wife? I do. And do you, Serena Morgan, take this man to be your lawfully wedded husband? Serena looked at Lucien, at this beautiful, terrible man who'd stolen her life and then given it back, transformed into something she barely recognized but desperately wanted. I do. Then by the power vested in me, I now pronounce you husband and wife. You may kiss the bride. Lucien pulled her close and kissed her like he was claiming her all over again. Like the past 3 months of recovery and planning and navigating the aftermath of Sergei's death had all been leading to this moment. When they broke apart, his forehead rested against hers. Mine, he murmured. Yours, she agreed. The reception was exactly as unconventional as the ceremony. No DJ, just a string quartet playing Vivaldi. No dancing, just conversation and excellent food, and the subtle awareness that half the guests were conducting business even while celebrating. This was Lucien's world, where weddings doubled as networking opportunities, and every interaction carried weight beyond social niceties. Serena moved through it with growing confidence, her hand in Lucien's, accepting congratulations from people whose names she was still learning. Natasha gave her a rare smile and a hug that felt genuine. Anton presented a gift, a Glock 19, custom engraved with her new initials. For protection, he signed in the simple sign language he'd taught her over the past months. Thank you, she signed back. Her mother found her near the end of the evening, pulling her aside to a quiet corner of the garden. So, her mother said, you're really doing this. I really did this, past tense, we're married. I know, I watched. Her mother's expression was complicated. Are you happy? The question caught Serena off guard. I think so. It's not the kind of happiness I expected, but yes. What kind is it? Serena thought about how to explain. It's the happiness of knowing exactly where you stand, of having someone who sees all your worst parts and wants you anyway, of feeling safe even when everything around you is dangerous. That's not happiness, sweetheart. That's survival. Maybe they're the same thing now. Serena looked back toward the reception, where Lucien was deep in conversation with one of his lieutenants. I'm not the person I was 3 months ago, Mom. That woman died. What's left is someone harder, someone who can live in this world without breaking. And you're okay with that? I have to be, because going back isn't an option. Her mother was quiet for a moment. I wish I could have protected you from this. You did protect me. You raised me to be strong enough to survive when life got complicated. Serena took her mother's hand. This is just more complicated than either of us imagined. That's one word for it. They stood together in the garden while the party continued inside, and Serena felt the weight of every choice that had led her here. The decision to smile at a stranger. The decision to get in his car. The decision to stay when running might have been safer. None of it had been easy, but she didn't regret it. Later, when the guests had finally left and the staff were cleaning up, Lucien found Serena standing on the balcony overlooking the river. He wrapped his arms around her from behind, his chin resting on her shoulder. Thinking? He asked. Always. About what? About how 3 months ago I was terrified of you, and now I'm your wife. Regrets? Surprisingly, no. She leaned back against him. You? Never. His arms tightened. Though I should probably confess something. Serena's stomach dropped. What? The night I first saw you, at Valentino's. I wasn't there for a meeting with Marcus. She turned in his arms. What? I was there because someone had told me about a waitress who was getting harassed by her boss and needed extraction from a dangerous situation. I was planning to offer you a job, different kind of protection. Someone told you? Who? Lucien smiled slightly. Your mother. The world tilted. What? She called an old friend who had connections. Asked if anyone could help her daughter who was in over her head in New York. That friend called me. So I went to check on you, and you smiled, and... He shrugged. Everything changed. Serena's mind was reeling. My mother set this up? She set up an intervention. I turned it into an obsession. There's a difference. Does she know that I was supposed to just offer you a legitimate job and instead kidnapped you? No. I thought it best to leave that part out. Lucien, I know, it's fucked up, but that's how we started. His hands framed her face. Your mother was trying to save you. I was trying to own you. Somewhere in the middle, we found something real. Serena didn't know whether to laugh or cry. So this whole time, your mother thought I was a legitimate businessman offering her daughter a better opportunity. Which I was, technically. Just not in the way she imagined. We have to tell her. Absolutely not. Let her keep thinking this happened organically. It'll be easier for everyone. That's lying. That's kindness. He kissed her forehead. Some truths don't need to be spoken. They just need to be survived. They stood there for a while, holding each other while the river flowed beneath them and the city lights glittered in the distance. This was their life now, built on partial truths and dangerous choices and love that shouldn't work, but somehow did. The next morning, Serena woke in Lucien's arms in a hotel suite overlooking Central Park. They decided against a honeymoon, too exposed, too many variables, and instead planned to spend a week at the Connecticut safe house. But first, Lucien had something to show her. They drove into the city, Anton at the wheel as always, and pulled up in front of a building Serena didn't recognize. It was elegant but understated, the kind of place that spoke of old money and careful discretion. Where are we? She asked. Your wedding present. Lucien helped her out of the car. Come on. He led her inside, through a lobby with marble floors and antique furniture, up an elevator to the top floor. The doors opened directly into a penthouse apartment that took Serena's breath away. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the park, open floor plan filled with natural light, furniture that managed to be both comfortable and expensive. Everything decorated in warm neutrals instead of Lucien's usual stark blacks and grays. What is this? She breathed. Ours. I bought it 2 months ago. He watched her reaction carefully. I know the other penthouse is secure, but it's also a fortress. I thought you might want somewhere that feels more like a home. Serena walked through the space, touching surfaces, testing the reality of it. There was a library, actual built-in shelves filled with books. A kitchen that looked designed for real cooking instead of just reheating takeout. A bedroom with a view that made her want to never leave. You did this for me? I did this for us. He came up behind her. The other place is for business. This is for living. It's perfect. There's more. He took her hand, leading her to what looked like a home office. Inside was a desk, a computer, and acceptance letters from 3 different universities offering her full academic scholarships. Serena's hands shook as she picked up the letters. How? I may have made some calls, explained your situation, the legitimate parts anyway, emphasized your academic record and potential. All 3 schools want you. He leaned against the doorframe. You pick which one. You finish your degree like you wanted, on your terms. Tears were streaming down her face now. Why are you doing this? Because you asked me to help you finish school, and because keeping you trapped would turn you into someone I don't want you to be. His voice was soft. I want you sharp and educated and capable. I want you to choose this life knowing you had other options. I want... He stopped, seeming to struggle with the words. You want me to want you, Serena finished, not need you. Yes? She crossed to him, taking his face in her hands. I already want you, you idiot. The scholarships are just a bonus. He kissed her, and it tasted like relief and promise, and the beginning of something that might actually last. The week at the safe house passed in a blur of lazy mornings and long conversations, and slowly learning how to be married to someone whose life was defined by violence, but who was trying very hard to build something gentler with her. Lucien taught her to shoot, just like he'd promised. They spent hours at the private range he'd built in the basement, him adjusting her stance, correcting her grip, patient in ways she wouldn't have expected. Breathe out as you squeeze, he murmured behind her. Don't pull the trigger. Squeeze it. She fired. The shot went wide. Again. They did it again and again until her arms ached and her ears rang despite the protection. But eventually the shots started landing where she aimed them. Better, Lucien said. Much better. Serena lowered the weapon, safety on, and turned to face him. Do you ever get tired of it? Of what? The violence. The constant vigilance. Never being able to fully relax. He considered the question. Sometimes. Usually at 3 a.m. when I can't sleep because I'm running threat assessments in my head. But then I look at you and I remember why I do it. That's a lot of pressure to put on one person. You can handle it. He took the gun from her, setting it aside. You're stronger than you think. I'm terrified half the time. Good. Fear keeps you sharp. His hand settled on her waist. Just don't let it control you. They made love that night with a tenderness that surprised them both. No desperation, no claiming, just the slow exploration of bodies becoming familiar with each other. Afterward, lying tangled in sheets, Serena traced the scars on Lucien's chest, old wounds from a life lived dangerously. Tell me about this one, she said, touching a long mark along his ribs. Knife fight in Prague. I was 23 and stupid. And this? Gunshot, Moscow, 26. This? That one's from you. He caught her hand, bringing it to his lips. The night you agreed to be mine. You dug your nails in so hard you drew blood. She remembered the fury and fear and desperate wanting all mixed together. Sorry, she said. Don't be. I liked it. He pulled her closer. Meant you were fighting back. Meant you weren't broken. Would you have preferred broken? God, no. Broken things are boring. You're interesting. His fingers traced patterns on her skin. You're the first person in years who's looked at me and seen a man instead of a weapon. You are a weapon. I know, but I'm also other things. You let me be other things. They fell asleep like that, wrapped around each other, and for the first time since this whole nightmare started, Serena felt something like peace. The call came at 4 a.m. Lucien's phone buzzing insistently on the nightstand, pulling them both from sleep. He answered it with the practiced alertness of someone who'd spent years expecting emergencies. What? He said shortly. Serena watched his expression change from sleepy to alert to something cold and calculating. When? A pause. How many? Another pause. Secure the perimeter. I'll be there in 20 minutes. He hung up and was already moving, pulling on clothes with efficient speed. What's wrong? Serena asked. The Russians. Not Sergei's people. A different faction. They're making a move on one of our warehouses in Red Hook. I thought we had a truce. We did. Someone broke it. He was strapping on his shoulder holster now, checking his weapon. I need to handle this before it escalates. Serena sat up, suddenly wide awake. I'm coming with you. Absolutely not. Lucien? This is different. This is active combat, not a rescue operation. You're staying here where it's safe. Nothing's safe. You taught me that. She was out of bed now, pulling on her own clothes. You said you wanted me sharp and capable, so let me be capable. Not like this, exactly like this. She faced him directly. I'm your wife now, your partner. That means I don't sit on the sidelines while you risk your life. We do this together or not at all. They stared at each other, and Serena could see him calculating, weighing risks, trying to find an argument that would work. You carry the weapon Anton gave you, he said finally. You stay behind me at all times, and if I tell you to run, you run. Agreed? Agreed. God help me. He grabbed his jacket. Let's go. The warehouse was chaos when they arrived. Gunfire echoed from inside, muzzle flashes visible through broken windows. Lucien's team had the building surrounded, returning fire, but the Russians inside had fortified positions. Natasha met them at the tactical van, her face grim. 12 hostiles inside. They're using our own people as shields. We can't get a clean shot without risking our guys. Casualties? Lucien asked. 3 wounded, 1 critical. They're asking for you specifically. Said they want to negotiate. It's a trap. Obviously. But they have leverage. Lucien's jaw tightened. He looked at Serena. Stay here with Natasha. No. Serena, you go in there alone, they'll kill you. You go in with your team, they'll kill the hostages. But if I go with you, she took a breath. They don't know me. They don't know I'm armed. I can get close. Absolutely not. She's right, Natasha said quietly. They're expecting you or your soldiers. They won't expect her. Lucien looked like he wanted to hit something. This is insane. This is strategy, Serena said. You taught me that. He grabbed her shoulders, his expression torn between pride and terror. If anything happens to you, then you'll burn the world down. I know. You've mentioned it. She stood on her toes, kissing him quickly. But nothing's going to happen. Trust me. I do trust you. It's everyone else I don't trust. Then cover me and let me do this. They approached the warehouse together, hands raised, Lucien calling out their presence. The shooting stopped. A voice from inside, heavily accented, hostile, responded. Devereux, finally! We were beginning to think you didn't care about your people. What do you want? Lucien kept his voice level. Simple negotiation. You give us territory we asked for, we give you your men back. And if I refuse, then they die. Starting with this one. A gunshot. Someone screamed. Lucien's control cracked for just a second, a flash of rage across his face before he locked it down. I'm coming in. I have my wife with me. She's unarmed. This is a good faith gesture. Laughter from inside. The famous Serena. Yes, bring her. We've been curious about the woman who tamed the monster. They entered through the main door and Serena's heart was trying to beat out of her chest. The warehouse was dark except for scattered work lights, full of shadows and hiding places. 5 men stood in the center, visible, armed. The others would be positioned around the perimeter. Lucien's people. She could see 3 of them now, on their knees, hands bound behind their backs. One was bleeding heavily from a shoulder wound. The leader stepped forward, a man in his 40s with a cruel face and dead eyes. So, the legendary Lucien Devereux. You look smaller in person. And you look exactly as stupid as your reputation suggests, Lucien said calmly. This is a mistake, Victor. You're starting a war you can't win. Maybe, maybe not. Depends on how much you value these lives. Victor gestured to the hostages. My sources say you've gone soft. Say you actually care now. That true? I care about maintaining order. You're disrupting it. Order, Victor laughed. You know what I think? I think you've gotten weak. I think this pretty little wife has made you vulnerable. I think... He stopped, looking at Serena with sudden interest. Come here, girl. Serena's blood ran cold, but she forced herself to move forward. Serena, Lucien said quietly. A warning. I'm fine, she said. Victor circled her slowly. You know what he is, yes? What he's done? Yes. And you married him anyway? That's either very brave or very stupid. Maybe both. He laughed. I like her. She has spine. Then his hand shot out, grabbing her arm, yanking her against him. A gun pressed to her temple. Which makes this more interesting. Everything happened at once. Lucien's weapon came up, but Victor's men had him covered from 3 angles. The hostages started shouting. And Serena's training kicked in. The hours at the range, Lucien's voice in her head telling her to stay calm, to wait for the opening. Victor was monologuing now, something about power dynamics and showing strength. His grip on her arm was tight, but his attention was divided. Serena's hand slipped to her concealed holster. The thing about monsters, Victor was saying, is that they can be broken if you know their weakness, and you, pretty girl, are his weakness. Serena drew and fired in one smooth motion. The shot took Victor in the knee, exactly where Lucien had taught her to aim for maximum pain and minimum lethality. He went down screaming, and Serena rolled away as chaos erupted. Lucien's team burst through the windows simultaneously, weapons firing with coordinated precision. The firefight was brief and brutal. 3 Russians down in as many seconds, the others trying to retreat. Lucien moving through the space like death incarnate, every shot perfectly placed. When the smoke cleared, it was over. Victor was still alive, writhing on the floor, clutching his shattered knee. Lucien stood over him, weapon pointed at his head. "You made a mistake," Lucien said quietly. "You touched what's mine." "Wait, we can negotiate." "You already negotiated. Badly." He glanced at Serena. "What do you think? Should I kill him?" Serena looked at the man who'd threatened her, who'd held a gun to her head, who'd proven exactly why Lucien lived the way he did. "No," she said. Lucien's eyebrow rose. "Don't kill him," Serena continued. "Let him live. Let him go back to his organization and explain how he failed, how a waitress from Ohio shot him, how he underestimated us both." Understanding dawned in Lucien's expression. "You want to make him an example. I want to make him a message. We're not weak, we're not vulnerable, and anyone who thinks differently ends up like him." Lucien smiled, fierce and proud, and absolutely feral. "I really love you." He turned back to Victor. "You heard my wife. You get to live. But you're going to deliver a message for me. Tell your organization that this territory is claimed. Tell them that Lucien Devereux and his wife are not to be tested, and tell them what happens when someone touches what's mine." He fired once. Not lethal, but Victor's other knee exploded. The man's scream echoed through the warehouse. "Get him out of here," Lucien ordered his team. "Drop him on his boss's doorstep." They dragged Victor away while Serena stood there shaking, the gun still in her hand. She'd shot someone. Actually, shot someone. The reality of it was crashing over her in waves. Lucien was there immediately, taking the weapon gently, setting it aside. "Breathe. You're okay. I shot him. You defended yourself perfectly, exactly like I taught you. I could have killed him, but you didn't. You made a strategic choice instead." His hands framed her face. "You were brilliant." Serena looked at him through tears she hadn't realized were falling. "Is this it? Is this what the rest of my life looks like?" "I don't know. Maybe. Probably." He pulled her close. "But we'll face it together." They stood there in the aftermath of violence, holding each other while his team secured the building and tended to the wounded. This was real. This was the life she'd chosen, and she'd just proven she could survive it. The drive back to the safe house was quiet. Serena sat pressed against Lucien's side, processing everything that had happened. The fear, the action, the moment she'd pulled the trigger and her training had overridden her terror. "You did well tonight," Lucien said quietly. "I shot someone. You protected yourself and gave us an opening to save 4 lives. That's not something to feel guilty about." "Do you feel guilty? About the people you've killed?" He was quiet for a moment. "Some of them. The ones who didn't deserve it. The ones who were just in the wrong place. But most of them?" He shook his head. "Most of them were like Victor, threats that needed eliminating. I feel about them the way you feel about stepping on an insect." "That's terrifying." "That's survival." He looked at her. "You can't do this halfway, Serena. You can't live in this world and keep your hands completely clean. Eventually, you have to choose, be a victim or be a survivor. You chose survivor tonight. And that makes me like you. No, that makes you like you, a better, stronger version who refuses to break." His arm tightened around her. "I'm proud of you." The words shouldn't have meant so much, but they did. Back at the safe house, Serena showered until the water ran cold, trying to wash away the feeling of Victor's blood on her hands, even though there wasn't any. When she emerged, Lucien was waiting with hot tea and a blanket. "Shock reaction," he said. "You'll feel better after you warm up." She let him wrap the blanket around her, let him pull her into his lap on the couch. They sat there in silence for a while, just breathing together. "I keep thinking about what you said," Serena murmured, "about choosing to be a survivor." "And? And I think I've been choosing that since the night I got in your car. Every decision after that, staying, fighting, learning, tonight, It's all been choosing survival over victimhood. Yes. So when does it stop feeling like falling? When you realize you've already landed. His lips brushed her temple. You're not falling anymore, Serena. You're exactly where you're meant to be. In the arms of a murderer? In the arms of someone who loves you enough to teach you how to protect yourself instead of keeping you helpless. She tilted her head back to look at him. That's a really twisted definition of love. Welcome to my world. They made love that night with a desperate intensity, both of them needing the connection after coming so close to losing it. Afterward, lying in the darkness, Serena traced the wedding band on Lucien's finger. Do you think we'll make it? She asked quietly. Make it to what? Old age, gray hair, grandchildren, the whole impossible normal thing. Lucien was quiet for so long she thought he might not answer. Then, I think we'll make it as far as we fight to go. Every day is a choice. Choose me, I choose you, we survive another day. String enough days together and maybe we get old. That's not very reassuring. That's honest. He turned to face her. I can't promise you forever, Serena. I can only promise you today. And tomorrow. And every day after that, I'm still breathing. And if one day you're not, then you take everything I've built and you run so far no one ever finds you. You use the money, the connections, the training. You survive. I don't want to survive without you. You will anyway, because you're stronger than you think. His hand covered hers. Promise me. If something happens, nothing's going to happen. Promise me. She looked into his eyes and saw real fear there. Fear that one day his luck would run out and she'd be left alone in this dangerous world he'd pulled her into. I promise, she whispered. Good. He pulled her close. Now sleep. We have a long drive back to the city tomorrow. Back to the new apartment? Back to our life. Whatever that looks like. Serena closed her eyes and felt sleep pulling at her. Her last thought before darkness took her was simple and strange and absolutely true. She was happy. Not the happiness she'd imagined, not the safe, simple happiness of her old dreams, but happy nonetheless. The next 6 months passed in a rhythm that gradually became normal. Serena enrolled at Columbia on one of the scholarships Lucien had secured, studying political science with a focus on international relations. Her professors thought she had a gift for understanding power dynamics. They had no idea she lived them every day. She and Lucien split their time between the new apartment and the Connecticut safe house, learning how to be married while navigating the constant low-level threat that came with his position. There were close calls, a car bomb that Anton detected before it detonated, an assassination attempt that ended with 3 dead Russians, and Lucien barely scratched, a betrayal from within that Natasha handled with terrifying efficiency. But through it all, they held on to each other. Serena's mother visited once a month, still processing her daughter's new life, but slowly accepting it. She and Lucien had developed a wary respect for each other. He treated her daughter well, kept his promises, and that was apparently enough. He's still a criminal, her mother said during one visit. I know, Serena replied. You could still leave. I could help you disappear. I know that too. But you're not going to. No. Her mother sighed. You're stubborn, just like your father. I'm stubborn like you, Serena corrected. I just apply it differently. On their 6-month anniversary, Lucien took Serena back to Valentino's. The restaurant was under new management now. Marcus's estate had sold it to a legitimate businessman who'd gutted the place and started fresh. But the coffee was still terrible, and the booths were still the same. They sat in the corner where Lucien had first seen her. You smiled at me here, he said, stirring his coffee absently. Right at this table. I was waiting for Marcus, planning how to kill him for stealing from me. And you brought coffee and smiled like you meant it. I did mean it. You look sad. I was sad. Elena had been dead for 2 years and I was still... He stopped. I was empty. Then you smiled, and for 15 seconds I forgot to be empty. So I came back. And back. And back. Stalking. Research. He took her hand. I wanted to know everything about you, wanted to understand why one smile from a stranger had affected me so deeply. And did you? Understand? Eventually. You weren't performing. weren't trying to be anything except kind in a cruel world. That authenticity, he shook his head. I'd spent so long around people who lied and manipulated and wore masks that I'd forgotten what genuine looked like. You reminded me. Serena squeezed his fingers. So you kidnapped me. So I saved you, then claimed you, then fell completely in love with you despite every instinct telling me it was a mistake. Was it? A mistake? Lucien looked at her with those pale, intense eyes. No. It was the best decision I ever made. They finished their terrible coffee and left the restaurant hand in hand. Outside, the city was alive with its usual chaos, sirens and horns and millions of people living their complicated lives. Somewhere in that chaos, threats were forming. Enemies were planning. The next crisis was brewing. But for now, walking down a Manhattan street with her husband, Serena felt something close to invincible. The call came 3 weeks later. Serena was in class when her phone buzzed with Natasha's number. She stepped out to take it. What's wrong? How do you know something's wrong? Natasha asked. You never call unless it is. What happened? Someone put a contract out on you, $5 million, posted 2 hours ago on the dark web. Serena's blood ran cold. Who? We're working on it, but Lucien wants you at the safe house immediately. I'm sending Anton to pick you up. I have a lab this afternoon. Cancel it. This is serious, Serena. She thought about arguing, but Natasha's tone left no room for it. Okay, I'll be ready. Anton arrived 20 minutes later, his expression grim. The drive to Connecticut was tense and silent. Serena's mind spun through possibilities. Who would want her dead badly enough to put up $5 million? The Russians were mostly eliminated. Sergei's organization had scattered. Victor had disappeared into whatever hole his bosses had buried him in. So who? The answer was waiting at the safe house. Lucien stood in the command center, surrounded by screens showing intercepted communications and dark web postings. When he saw Serena, relief flooded his expression for a moment before hardening back into business mode. Tell me, she said. The contract came from Elena's family. Serena's stomach dropped. What? They blame you for... He stopped, running a hand through his hair. They have this idea that Elena died because I was distracted trying to protect someone else. You. Even though we didn't meet until 2 years after her death. They've built this entire conspiracy theory where you were secretly in my life all along and I chose you over her. That's insane. That's grief. His voice was tired. They've been searching for someone to blame for years. Now they've decided it's you. Can we reason with them? I tried. They're not interested in reason. They want revenge. Serena sat down heavily. So what do? We eliminate them. Lucien, before you argue, hear me out. He came to kneel in front of her. These aren't criminals. They're civilians who've hired criminals. We can't negotiate with them because they're not playing by any rules we understand. Our only option is to remove the threat permanently. You mean kill them? Yes. Serena looked at this man she'd married who was calmly discussing murdering a grieving family. There has to be another way. There isn't. I've run every scenario. They won't stop until you're dead or they are. Then let me talk to them. Absolutely not. They want answers? I'll give them answers. I'll explain what actually happened. When we met, how it happened, everything. She gripped his hands. Let me try before we resort to murder. Lucien looked like he wanted to refuse, but something in her expression made him pause. One meeting, he said finally. Controlled environment, full security, me present. They try anything, they die. Agreed? Agreed. The meeting was arranged for 3 days later at a neutral location, a law office in Midtown that specialized in mediation for wealthy clients. Elena's parents arrived with their own security, their lawyer, and expressions of such profound grief that Serena's heart broke just looking at them. They sat on opposite sides of a conference table, Elena's family on one side, Lucien and Serena on the other. Elena's mother spoke first. Her voice was steady, but her hands shook. You have no idea what you took from us. I didn't take anything, Serena said gently. I never met your daughter, never even heard of her until months after her death. Lies. Our investigator proved you and Lucien were involved years before he claims your investigator is wrong. Serena pulled out documents, her old school records, employment history, every piece of evidence proving she'd been in Ohio when Elena died. I was 2,000 miles away working at my family's hardware store when your daughter was killed. I didn't come to New York until 2 years later. Elena's father grabbed the documents, scanning them with desperate eyes. These could be faked. They're not faked, Lucien said quietly. They're real, verified by multiple independent sources. Serena had nothing to do with Elena's death. Then who did? Elena's mother's voice broke. Someone has to be responsible. Someone has to pay. The men who killed her paid, Lucien said. I made sure of it. Every single person involved died badly, but that doesn't bring Elena back. Nothing brings her back. So we're supposed to just accept it? Accept that our daughter is gone and no one else suffers? Serena leaned forward. Your daughter died because she was used as a weapon against someone she loved. I'm so sorry that happened. I'm sorry you lost her, but killing me won't bring her back. It'll just create more grief, more families destroyed, more people suffering. You don't understand. Well, I do understand. Serena's voice was firm now. I understand that grief makes you want to hurt something, someone. I understand that $5 million feels like justice, but it's not. It's just revenge, and revenge won't make you feel better. Elena's parents looked at each other, something passing between them. We loved our daughter, her mother said finally, and watching what her death did to Lucien, watching him become harder, colder. We thought if we could remove the thing that made him vulnerable again, we could prevent another Elena. I'm not making him vulnerable, Serena said. I'm making him stronger. There's a difference. Is there? Yes. She looked at Lucien. Elena's death broke something in him. I'm not trying to fix it. I'm just helping him build something new from the pieces, something that honors her memory instead of betraying it. The room was quiet for a long time. Finally, Elena's father spoke. Cancel the contract. Dmitri, Elena's mother started. Cancel it, he repeated. She's right. Elena wouldn't want this. She'd want... His voice broke. She'd want us to let go. Elena's mother covered her face with her hands, and her husband pulled her close. Lucien stood slowly. I'm sorry I couldn't save her. I've been sorry for 3 years. If I could trade my life for hers, I would. We know, Elena's father said. We've always known. That's why this is so hard. Because there's no one to blame except men who are already dead. They left shortly after, the contract canceled, the threat eliminated without a single shot fired. In the car afterward, Lucien pulled Serena close. You did that, he said. You actually talked them down. Violence isn't always the answer. In my world, it usually is. Then maybe it's time to build a different world. He kissed her temple. Maybe it is. The seasons changed. Summer turned to fall, turned to winter. Serena finished her first year at Columbia with honors. Lucien slowly began restructuring his operations, moving away from the most violent aspects, transitioning toward legitimate businesses that still generated power but less bloodshed. It was slow work, dangerous work, but possible work. On their first anniversary, they returned to the estate where they'd been married. This time it was just them, no guests, no security beyond Anton and Natasha at the perimeter. They had dinner on the terrace overlooking the river as snow began to fall. 1 year, Serena said, watching the flakes drift down. We actually made it 1 year. You sound surprised. I am surprised. This time last year I was terrified of you. And now? Now I'm just terrified in general. But with you instead of you, there's a difference. Lucien laughed. Progress. Real question, though. She turned to face him. Are you happy? He considered it. I'm something close to happy. Content, maybe. Satisfied that I made the right choice when I saw you in that restaurant. Even though it complicated everything? Especially because it complicated everything. Complication means I'm living instead of just surviving. He took her hand. You gave me that. A reason to live beyond just not dying. That's dark. That's honest. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the snow transform the landscape into something magical. Somewhere in the city, threats were forming. Somewhere, enemies were planning. But here, in this moment, they were just two people who'd found each other in the darkest circumstances and decided to hold on anyway. "I love you," Serena said quietly. "I love you too." Lucien pulled her closer. "Thank you." "For what?" "For smiling at me that day. For getting in my car. For staying when you could have run. For choosing this impossible life. Thank you for saving me." "You saved yourself. I just provided the tools." Serena smiled. "We saved each other then. How's that?" "Perfect." They stayed there until the cold drove them inside, until the fire warmed their frozen hands, until sleep claimed them in each other's arms. And in the morning, when sunlight filtered through windows and painted everything gold, they woke up together. Still alive, still fighting, still choosing each other. Day after impossible day. Because that's what love looked like in their world. Not gentle, not safe, but real. And worth every terrible, beautiful second. Serena Morgan, now Serena Devereux, had walked into death and come out the other side transformed. She wasn't the scared waitress anymore. Wasn't the struggling student drowning in debt. She was something harder now, sharper. Someone who could stand beside a monster and not flinch. Someone who'd learned that survival and love weren't opposites. They were the same thing, just expressed differently depending on who was watching. And as she lay there in Lucien's arms, listening to his heartbeat and feeling safer than she'd ever felt in her old life, Serena understood the truth that had been building from the moment she'd gotten in that car. She hadn't lost herself. She'd found herself. In the last place she'd ever expected to look, in the arms of the man who'd kidnapped her and loved her and taught her that sometimes the cage is a choice, and sometimes choosing the cage is the freest thing you can do. Because freedom without purpose is just drifting. And she was done drifting. She'd found her anchor, and she was holding on, no matter what came next.